across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show. It's 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Great to have your company. Another sweltering hot day. I hope you're surviving. And if you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, great to have your company. If you do miss anything from the show, if you missed anything from the whole of the last week, or indeed any time, go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be discussing how Count Binface is set to be the only main challenger to Nigel Farage in the Clacton by-election. Well, of course, I mean, there will be also Lawrence Fox from the Reclaim Party as well. But Nigel Farage has accused Labour and the Tories of both showing contempt for the electorate by not standing a candidate. But again, as we were discussing a lot yesterday, has he got egg on his face over that? Plus, a brand new report about government-appointed review by Stephen Timms has said that Britain's main disability benefit, PIP, is not fit for purpose. It argues that it basically discourages people from getting a job and going to work, apart from the fact that obviously it's an in-work benefit as well as an out-of-work benefit. Crucially, though, most of the people who are actually on it are not in work, even if they were in work when they started, because basically it's an extra 10k for a lot of people on top of other benefits. Makes it quite worth their while not to work at all, doesn't it? May that possibly explain the fact that since 2019, the number of claimants has doubled to 4 million. Doubled. Well, according to Stephen Timms, the man who did the review this morning, he told the BBC that, our definitions of sickness and disability have changed. Yeah, to include people who are not disabled. Maybe that's the problem. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because the Tory party have said, I think quite rightly on this, that absolutely that Labour is in denial over disability benefits. There's really no expectation at all that Andy Burnham, when, and it is a when now, he becomes Prime Minister on the 20th of July, has any intention of seriously cutting the number of claimants to that benefit. So I want to hear your thoughts. What is your reaction? It's not fit for purpose. I mean, tell us something we don't know. Did we need a review into that? But claimants doubling since 2019. Have we really got double the number of people with some sort of disability in the last 7 years? Are people taking the mick out of us even claiming that? Are people absolutely taking the mick? And I would say defrauding people who get up for work every day, go out to work, pay for their own families and pay tax. Oh, yeah, and I would say defrauding the people who are genuinely disabled, genuinely do need that money to live a decent life, who the rest of us are happy to pay our taxes to support. I want to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000, text us on 87222, or you can get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls to charge the national rate, and text costs £1, standard network rate message. We're also going to be talking about the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who's set to deport the, to change the law so she could deport the Pakistan-born ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang, but it doesn't look like Pakistan will be willing to take him back unless we meet some rather unacceptable criteria back. We're going to be talking about that, plus the huge changes that are going to have to take place to make so many toilets and changing rooms compliant with the new guidance, the established law on single-sex spaces. Plenty more on that as well. Delighted to say joining me today is Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. Morning to you.
Morning to you.
We will, of course, do a little bit on, war, defence spending, that sort of stuff. The unimportant...
Is there anything about that?
The trivia. We'll probably spend more time talking about whether or not we should have a World Cup bank holiday if we win. But, there's a little small matter of war and the massive impact of that and our future
holiday win.
Safety. Maybe we should have a bank holiday if we win a war against Russia.
Oh, yes. Well, definitely.
Have you watched much of the World Cup at all? I know you're not a football fan. You made a valiant effort for me last time.
I've watched every England game.
Good man.
There we go. And the last one was rather exciting.
Listen, if you are new to Philip Ingram, and why are you? that is such a big... I would say concession from you.
Yes.
In fact, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well done, Philip. Even Philip. There you are. Yeah. Right, let's talk about Count Binface. Now, on Tuesday, Nigel Farage comes out fighting, establishment stitch up, people versus the establishment, resigns to stand in a by-election. He can't pull out of it. A lot of people, in fact, one of our guests yesterday, Dan Hodges, said he was going to try and pull out of it. No, it wasn't. If he wanted to, it wasn't going to happen. He has admitted in an interview this morning with the Express that he didn't expect that the other parties wouldn't stand. Bit of a miscalculation on that part. He is looking like he's got egg on his face. His claim is that the other parties are basically completely and utterly showing contempt for the electorate by not standing candidates. And the idea he's just going to be, Rachel Reeves said, you're just going to spend the summer fighting a bin, because Count Binface has said he will stand. And also reclaims Lawrence Fox as well, no doubt Monster Ruling Party, and who else? Has he got egg on his face, or is this still the right thing for him to do?
I think he's got egg on his face, and I think he could be in quite a difficult position here. If you just look at the numbers and all the rest of it, Count Binface, everyone laughs at him and all the rest of it. He works in Talk Towers. We know he
does. He's been unmasked today.
Yes, we know, and he was unmasked by John Pienaar in one of the rival outputs in Talk Towers yesterday. Yes.
Count Binface, he's an intergalactic space warrior and leader of the Recyclons from planet Sigma 9. That's kind of you. He's not a very...
That's the 14th floor.
Not a very good comedian. John Harvey, his name is. Yes. But I love the fact Theresa May, when she got elected, when she was Prime Minister in 2017, she had to stand next to Count Binface. I love that aspect of our democracy, because we should be mocking political leaders.
Nigel Farage, some statistics. Nigel Farage, last election, got 21,225 votes. If you add together what everyone else got, let's say it's between the two of them, everyone else got 24,733 votes. So Count Binface could unseat Nigel Farage if the main parties put,
I think this is I think this is a horrible error. When you first said it, I thought, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And then I remember about 10 minutes in, thinking, oh, hold on a minute. I remember what happened to David Davis when he resigned as Shadow Home Secretary and as an MP, and he thought, and basically no one stood against him, and over a civil liberties issue. It was one of those like, what have you done that for?
And if his majority is reduced, then that gives
which it will be, because there tends to be a lower turnout.
So that gives all of the mainstream parties the ability to turn around and say, look, your popularity is going down. This is going to impact across the country. I think he's miscalculated.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a fair description of the situation, isn't it? He says that this is deadly serious. Realistically, he's likely to win this. I mean, but nothing kind of changes, because he will then face the further investigation. And as I've been saying, I do think two things can be true at the same time. And I think there is an element of establishment stitch-up, not by journalists investigating him at all. I've got no issue with journalists doing their legitimate job, but he should have declared the money. If in any doubt, he should have declared it. Once told, you probably should have declared it. He should then have apologised and declared it. I don't think, personally, I'm not really happy with any of our politicians getting money from any big questionable sources. No. I don't know why someone on the other side of the planet, British or not, would want to give anybody who isn't their son or daughter, frankly, 5 million quid.
Yeah. But again...
And he does lobby on cryptocurrency, and this is from a crypto billionaire. And I'm sorry, but...
Yeah.
It does look fishy. And I say that as someone with the opposite of an axe to grind with Nigel Farage.
It does look fishy, but the funding in every political party looks fishy.
This is true.
And this is where, before Labour came in, they got 4 million quid from somewhere that was not quite as open and allegedly was undeclared. And this is happening across every party. So there needs to be a look at political party funding. That needs to come in somewhere. And
it can't just be like, if it's an individual, it can't be, or just, I've definitely foreign donors. You live abroad? No, sorry, not a penny.
Well, we need to stop foreigners being able to be elected into our parliament.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got people who are not British citizens.
The Scottish elections being up basically someone who's there's this guy. He claims he's trans or non-binary or something nonsense, being elected, and he's just here on a temporary visa.
Yeah,
I will say, by the way, I don't think foreigners should be allowed to vote in our elections. We have, if you're from a Commonwealth country like Pakistan or India, you can vote in our general elections. We can't. If I lived in Pakistan or India, I wouldn't be allowed to vote. I'm sorry. On what? I don't. Well, I live here. But you're not a British citizen. Yeah. Do you think that's the difference between being a citizen? There are so many aspects. Yeah. So many aspects of politics.
And this is where if Andy Burnham comes in and wants to make a real difference, he can make a real difference.
They always want. No, because they change. Labour changed the rules on foreign donors the day after. Basically, they got a massive big, was it a 4 million donation from abroad. I've just got some breaking news I want to bring you. This is very sad for anyone my era in particular, but also if you like the karaoke, which I do. Absolute staple of a karaoke night for me. Bonnie Tyler, best known, of course, for the, brilliant hit, Total Eclipse of the Heart, has very sadly died. We've known she's been unwell for quite some time. She's 75 years old. Born actually Gaynor Hopkins, Bonnie Tyler, not her real name, but she was in an induced coma back in May, having had an emergency intestinal surgery in Portugal. And last month we were told that she was out of the coma but remained very unwell in intensive care. And she has now very sadly died. Amazing voice. They called her like the female Rod Stewart, didn't they?
Yeah.
But she, again...
Oh, better than Rod Stewart by a long way.
We're from an era, I'm sorry, but, absolutely huge star. And that song, if you're like, an RA, age 50, 60, and if you don't know every single word to that song, start to finish, frankly, what have you been doing with your life? There are some people,
So are we going to have a bit of a karaoke?
We're not going to have a karaoke. In tribute to the wonderful Bonnie Tyler. That's really sad.
Yeah, that's very sad. Very sad.
It's not actually that good an innings either, 75. When people die in their 90s, you go, good innings.
But
75 is not good innings now.
Emergency surgery that didn't go right, it could happen to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Very sad news. Let's talk about something completely different. Let's talk about Labour being in denial, the Tories are claiming, over disability benefits. Particularly over disability benefit cuts, because there ain't going to be any. This is the question we're asking you today, although I know a lot of you still want to call in about Nigel Farage, which you are welcome to do. You get to choose what you call about. You know the rules. But Britain's disability welfare system is unfit for purpose. That is what an official review carried out by the Disability Minister, Sir Stephen Timms, has said, with only half of those claiming personal independence payments, that's PIP, staying in work after they begin receiving the benefit. Now, this is not a means-tested benefit, and it's not based on whether you're working or not working. It is, anyone can claim it if they have a disability, mental or physical, for which there are extra financial needs as a result. So we can all understand some of those needs. If you're in a wheelchair, if you're blind, alterations to your home, extra costs for transport, and things like that. And I think, and it can be worth up to 194 quid a week, which is a hell of a lot of money, and we're looking at basically 10 grand extra a year. And that, by the way, is 10 grand extra on top of whether it's your salary or your benefits. So that's a lot of extra money. But more than 4 million people are now claiming that benefit. It's 7% up on last year. It is double what it was in 2019. Asked about that this morning on the BBC, he was asked, do you seriously think that, that double the number of people are now got disabilities? And he astonishingly, I think even the BBC presenter was somewhat surprised, said, well, we have changed our definitions of disability. To include people who aren't disabled. I don't understand why if you've got ADHD or autism or anxiety, why you have extra costs of living.
Yeah,
I don't understand. But also, a lot of people go on this benefit when they're in work. They get enough that they don't have to work, so they don't work.
Correct.
So it actually discourages people from working. However, he did not say... Some people said applying for the benefit was dehumanising. It's like... you have to be asked questions about your abilities and your income, or not your income in this case, your disabilities. I don't see what the problem is that. But this says he instead. My view is that the current level of spending is not a great concern. What would be a concern would be if it carried on going up forevermore. So it's OK to have doubled since 2019, because miraculously, over a 7-year period...
So many people got so many more disabilities.
When you walk along the street, you're like, oh, my goodness, look at all the disabled people. You don't normally see this many disabled people. Most of these people, of course, claiming mental disability and, like, back pain and stress, which were what people used to claim for, impossible for someone to actually say you haven't got what you say you've got.
Yeah, and they are taking the PIP. Completely taking the PIP, and there is no way have people. We increase that number of people who are disabled, and the trouble is those that really need benefits are the ones that are losing out most because they're not getting the increases that they deserve to allow them to.
Or they're actually seeing cuts. We had a caller a couple of days ago, and she was saying that that her daughter had lost out on having benefits. That she, on having enough time from carers to come in and help her. Her daughter's in a wheelchair with cystic fibrosis, and she's losing out. But I would rather we spent money helping her.
My father-in-law, who's still quite seriously ill in hospital.
Yeah.
Gordon, if you're listening,
hello, Gordon.
Shout out to you. I know you will listen and catch up if you're fast asleep. But whenever he gets back to his apartment, and he's never had this. It's only since May, and he's only been home twice and then back into hospital again.
He'll need help.
He has had to get 4 helpers in a day, but they'll only give him that for 6 weeks, and then he's going to have to start paying for it.
Yeah.
He spent his career as a barman. He is not a wealthy individual.
He's not sitting there with a load of dosh to spend.
He paid his taxes. He paid everything. He was diligent with it. Yet, fighting to get any help for him is really, really difficult indeed.
Yeah.
And he's served his dues.
Yeah, well, exactly. And again, people who need it, I don't think your average 21-year-old who's claiming they're stressed on a Monday morning needs it. I'm sorry, it's simple as that. I don't even think they should be eligible for unemployment benefit.
No.
I think the parents have to pay for them. I think this would motivate parents to do their job a bit better.
We could follow the German system, which is you've got unemployment benefit for a fixed period of time. I think it's 6 months, and then the employment office will give you 3 jobs. You have to take one of those 3 jobs, and then your benefits are, and even if you don't take them, your benefits are stopped.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. No, that's within the human rights legislation in Germany, and therefore European human rights and everything else.
You don't have a human right to benefits. You're right. Under our system,
this government will argue it.
Do you have a human right to stay in the country?
No.
We were discussing last Thursday. We were discussing about the need to simply change the law so the Pakistani-born ringleader of this Rochdale grooming gang could actually be, this is Shabir Ahmed, that he could be removed from Britain. He's been had his British citizenship stripped away from him under the Tory government years and years ago, and then no one went, oh, this is a bit difficult because he's thrown away his, he's basically renounced his Pakistani nationality, born there as a child, brought here in the 60s as a child. The Pakistani government go, it's not our problem, it's your problem. You're the one, he lived with you for years, he's nothing to do with us. He grew up as, he's born here but bred under you. He renounced his citizenship. I mean, we used the same argument with Shameen Begum. So, that's the problem with that. But basically, as we were discussing, and callers were saying, I wrote in my Sun article last week, change the law. It's what can we do? How do we get rid of this guy? Because Pakistan won't take him and we're not allowed to deport him because he's now a citizenless, homeless, person. And since he's been released from prison early after 14 years, you only get 14 years for basically gang raping girls as young as 12 for 4 years. I mean, that's all you get. I mean, he literally got less than 6 months even for the ones he was convicted for, which is an outrage. And he didn't even serve that. But it was really clear they can change the law. After a week, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is getting plaudits and saying they're going to change the law so he can be deported. How slow do these people work? Was it a Zoom call to everyone walking the dog as they work from home?
Well, I'm sorry. What it should have been was something to do with keeping the pubs open for an England football match. That required a law change, and that happened in how long? They're messing around.
Priorities.
The priorities have to be dealing with these evil people.
There's no expectation that Pakistan will actually take him. They're basically saying, well, if we're going to take him, and there are another 2 Pakistan-born members of that grooming gang, it's almost like there's a particular problem, isn't there, people? I mean, just keeps on happening, doesn't it? But they're basically saying, well, there's various political dissidents that are living in Britain. We'd quite like them back. Now, if people have been accused of a crime, and we've got an extradition treaty, then fine. But if it's just a political, if these people have got political asylum, then that's a very different thing.
We've got a huge lever. I live in Birmingham. The number of flights that come in from Pakistan, and you see, thousands are coming in. You just refuse all visas, and everyone that's here on a visa, you turn around and say, right, your visas are now being revoked. And you send
you'd even go that far. At the very least, you want to go home to visit on holiday, you may not get back in again.
You're not allowed back in, full stop.
No, but we need to start playing hardball. And it's just like, oh, no, we can't.
Yes,
and then people were saying, it's being a bit... there was actually an accusation of Pakistan. It was a very colonial attitude from Britain. No, it's not. He's yours.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I don't think the situation should be we'd have to deport him. I think the situation should be that he comes out of prison in a box. That is my preferred solution.
Oh, I agree.
I don't want him raping girls in Pakistan either, which he would then be free to do there.
Yeah.
So... But if it's a choice, I'd rather he was doing it there than here. The preference is we have a proper system in this country of judicial punishment where he doesn't come out other than in a box. but that's just me. As I always say, I'm old-fashioned.
Not just you,
I'm
it's
old-fashioned.
both of us.
I think that 12-year-olds' right not to be raped
Correct.
trumps the right of rapists to be on the streets. I know it's a controversial opinion and it may not catch on, but I'm standing by it. Shall we talk about, the failures of this government? There's a lot of talk about how this is a zombie government because, nothing's happening. Officially today, really, how long? The nominations have opened for the Labour leadership. Yesterday, Al Khan's the only possible likely, former Armed Force Minister contender against Andy Burnham that could actually delay his arrival, his coronation. He made it clear he was supporting Andy Burnham. Obviously, some negotiations have been going on behind the scenes.
He's got a good job. I wonder what it is.
And I hope he does have. But it is going to be Andy Burnham. I'm away on holes from tomorrow, so I have a whole week of not having having Keir Starmer, my Prime Minister, having to actually listen to him.
Oh, don't worry, we will message you
No,
every single speech that he's got.
Turning my phone off. I don't want to hear a thing. But when I return, Andy Burnham on the Friday will be the anointed Labour leader. I reckon, at least 400 of the 403 MPs will be nominating him today, going all licking his backside, going, give me a job, give me a job. I was always a supporter. And then on Monday the 20th, he's going to go. Well, Keir Starmer will officially resign as Prime Minister. And Andy Burnham will go to the King and he will become our Prime Minister. And then we'll go through the usual palaver of Steve Bray playing loud music or banging a drum or something outside as the new Prime Minister gives his speech, which is going to be very tedious. And we need to stop that, by the way. Do it indoors. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, that's going to happen. But right now, kind of nothing's getting done. We had Keir Starmer walking the red carpet in Ankara at this NATO summit, and they're all sitting there going, "You're literally." You're not even a lame duck. You're a dead duck.
Keir Starmer didn't take the hint whenever President Erdogan gave him a live weapon with bullets with his name engraved on it.
Oh, this is the thing.
Was that sending a message?
Erdogan's parting gift from this summit was to all the world leaders who turned up was a beautiful ornate gun, wasn't it? With bullets. With bullets. Their own name.
A working weapon with the bullets with their names engraved on it.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And Keir Starmer, of course, didn't bring it back in because it would be illegal to import in the country. He's got close protection firearms teams with him. They could have brought it in and had it secured and everything else. He's play acting again.
Always scared of guns, I have to say, I was scared of guns until I went clay pigeon shooting. What a laugh. What a laugh. Love that. Anyway.
I've been shooting all of my life, even long before I was in the army. Now, that's something a Northern Irish man should never admit to.
Oh, OK, that sounds wrong. But anyway, but it is a bit of a zombie government. We are waiting. But I don't have any expectation it's going to be anything but that. When we're told we're going to find out the full cabinet in one go. We're not going to have it, chance of this, chance of that. I think, genuinely, he still doesn't know what he's doing.
Yep.
He has actually sent out he says he's going to focus defence spending on UK firms. That's great, except actually a lot of stuff we can get quicker and often more cheaply is from America. And better quality. I'm sorry, it is.
The Americans are playing hardball now because what they're doing is realising that they need a lot of their own domestic use, and therefore a lot of contracts that they have agreed to and have been building capacity for over the years, they're now not fulfilling them.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, well, there you are then. Oh, it's almost like when a lot of countries are trying to, get things like weapons or long-range missiles, or I don't know, personal, what are those, PPE, during a pandemic. Yep. There's a shortage of them. Maybe it's best to have that stuff in advance.
Yes.
Who knew? Who knew? Where do you think we are when it comes to our defence? So. We had the NATO summit. I think the other leaders got away quite lightly, given Donald Trump's mood. He was more focused on Iran. What do you make of it?
Well, the NATO summit went well from a NATO summit perspective. The UK's perspective in there. There's lots of statements coming out about we're going to be leading a European concession to do new missiles and bits and pieces. But you put that in context with the Defence Investment Plan, and the Defence Investment Plan is nothing but smoke and mirrors.
Yep.
There is nothing firm in there that is going to allow us to start to improve our capability at all. And the reality is, for the first 2 or 3 years of it, we are seeing cuts. Our frontline forces are having to cut what they're doing.
You can talk the talk, and you can talk about unity and all that nonsense. At the end of the day, unity and talking the talk doesn't shoot down Russian missiles.
And what really worries me is the talk of Andy Burnham continuing with the Chagos deal, because that is a minimum of 10 billion and possibly closer to 100 billion
out of the defence
coming
budget.
Out of the defence budget.
Yeah, because
So,
giving away a base is
to give away something we own and don't have to give away.
genuinely terrifying. But there we are. I genuinely we thought Keir Starmer was bad, but oh my God, I mean genuinely, I think the shine is already coming off Andy Byrne.
I can't bin fist. Can't bin fist for PM.
I think we'd be better
definitely.
off. I really do. Your thoughts, please. 0344 499 1000. I'm going to get to your calls next on anything and everything you want to talk about, including disability, as Labour just frankly it's got not fit for purpose system, and have they frankly not got to grips with this? I'd love to have your thoughts. A lot of you still calling in about Nigel Farage and that by-election. Now is pretty much facing no major candidates. Give us a call 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
And I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which would happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. This will be a people versus the establishment by-election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, this is Talk. 10:30 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. Vivian is in Devon. You want to talk about PIP, those disability benefits. What do you want to say?
Well, I think it needs a huge overhaul, and I'm on it.
There you are then. That's the giveaway. Do you mind me, and feel free not to answer, do you mind me giving us a clue of what you need it for?
I've got secondary progressive MS.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yep.
You need it?
I can hardly move. I've got chronic nerve pain.
Yeah.
All sorts of things.
So that extra is about 190 odd a week. That is absolutely vital for what in your home and your life? What do you use it for?
Oh, we had to buy a lift in the house.
Yeah.
A car that we can push the wheelchair into, which costs a small fortune.
And that's what you use the money for. And I'm sorry, but as a taxpayer, that's exactly what we pay taxes for, to help people who, that could have happened to me. We could be in the opposite situation, and you'd be happy to pay taxes for me to help that extra help. Likewise for you. That's what a civilised society does. So why do you say it needs an overhaul?
Because all the people on it with anxiety, and I haven't got anxiety, by the way.
Yeah. I've got real disease. Now, there will be some people with severe mental issues and mental health issues and that are completely debilitating, and I'm sympathetic to that. But the idea that the number of people on this benefit have doubled since 2019, I mean, we know that's a joke, don't we?
Since COVID.
Yeah.
And I think the doctors have got an awful lot to answer for.
I couldn't agree with you more. Do you know what? I'm particularly amazed, and this has happened to people I know, where people have gone to the doctor about any and other things, and they've been offered antidepressants. And everyone knows, anyone who's on antidepressants, you rarely come off them, and they create more problems than they actually solve for most people. I mean, they hand out the pills, they hand out, a diagnosis like that with no expertise, because they don't have expertise in mental health, GPs, and then people are basically off work for life.
Yeah, I think they do it. It's an easy life for them, isn't it? They just sign them off here, there and everywhere.
Yeah, I think you're right. Again, and are you angry that there are people claiming the same benefit as you who... I mean, I'm not quite sure why having ADHD means you might need an extra 10 grand a year.
It does make me angry, and it's as if everybody with PIP is pulling a fast one. Well, we're not.
Yeah. We need it, absolutely. Vivienne, I really appreciate your call, and I wish you the very, very best. Thank you for that. John is in... Oh, I was going to say, normally I moan about them having better weather, but I think we might be doing better here than them. John is in Dordogne, in France. Hello, John.
Hello, Julia.
Hello.
Again.
Very well. How hot is it there?
It's going to be 40 today.
Well, then we are better off than you, because it's about early 30s for us. Anything's better than 40s, but I'm sure you can cope there. John, what do you want to talk about?
Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
He will win the first by-election.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there will be a second by-election?
I don't know. I need to see the results of this investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner.
I'll bet you any amount of money you want, they will not. They'll give him a slap on the wrist. And
he won't get a 10-day suspension, so he won't...
Yes.
Do you think this is all a clever tactic to avoid that, then?
It is. Man, the man is as sharp as a pin.
I have to say, this is one of my things. He rarely does make tactical errors like this, but he has admitted today he did not expect the other parties not to stand.
Well, that's down to them, isn't it? I mean, who's going to have egg on their face? Are they going to be out there campaigning for this...
Big campaign face?
Yeah, are they going to be out there? I don't know if that's even legal.
What?
They are trying to stitch up
Yeah.
Nigel Farage and the Reform Party.
I think there is an element of there are a lot of people in the establishment who don't want him to do well. But it's bang to rights that he's being investigated for 5 million quid from a crypto billionaire that he didn't declare. And I have no axe to grind with Nigel Farage.
No, I'm not interested in that personally.
You don't care. It doesn't bother you. People are getting 5 million quid from people.
No, I don't care. When he stands up in Parliament and wants to make a point, and 300 opposition MPs are shouting him down.
It's outrageous.
Right? And Hoyle sits there and does bugger all. That's what we should all be worried about.
No, I agree with you. I think it's outrageous, and I've called it out before. But I still also think that there's an argument. If you know they're out to get you, maybe don't give them ammunition.
In 3 years' time, it'll be the foot will be on the other shoe. There'll be 300 or 400 of us, Reform MPs. I'm not going to be an MP.
Yeah.
But there's going to be 300 or 400 of us shouting them down.
Well, I hope not, because I think that's unbecoming. I think it's just not how we should do things in a democracy. John, thank you for that. You enjoy the 40-degree plus heat in the Dordogne. 10:35 is the time. Up next, get the thoughts of the former political editor of The Sun, Trevor Cabinet. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Philip Ingram's still with me. I'll get his thoughts on what my next guest has to say. Trevor Kavanagh, he's the former political editor of The Sun. And actually, interestingly, Trevor, you wrote a big sort of column in The Sun today about Nigel Farage. So I want to ask you about that first. Do you think, for the benefit of my audience, that Nigel Farage has played a blinder, a masterstroke, as John has just said, or that actually this has come back to bite him and he's made a horrible tactical error and it's going to end up with egg on his face as he faces only Count Bin face in this by-election?
Well, I think all of the latter, frankly, Julia, and I think this is really a serious point in the life and career of Nigel Farage. And I have to say that I just love listening to your callers. They give you an amazing cross-section of views on this with a huge dose of common sense mixed in. I just love it. Anyway, I think that this has been a major tactical error in its own right, but it was forced on him by his own deeds or failure to do the obvious thing, which is to keep good political housekeeping. And nobody can blame anybody else but Nigel Farage for the fact that he accepted £5 million
This
from
is the
a
thing.
cryptocurrency billionaire, which just on its own is just a whiff of something.
And he has been lobbying for changes in cryptocurrency, the rates dealt with by the bank, and the Bank of England wanting to sort of, and their regulations and the like, and that's something that he said he would do if he was in power on day one. I mean, there is a reason why crypto billionaires want to give him money. Now, this crypto billionaire, Christopher Harborn in Thailand, may absolutely just love Nigel Farage and want to thank him for Brexit, and it's a gift, that's fine. But again, I was very grateful for what he did for Brexit. I took him out for a nice slap-up lunch. But it wasn't a £5 million bill for the lunch, Trevor.
No, this is absolutely right. And frankly, if it had been just £5 million on its own from someone very wealthy, it would be hard to disagree with it, although he should have declared it eventually to the Commons. But it is the association with cryptocurrency which is indelibly stained by its links with organised crime. Now, I'm not suggesting anything in that regard as far as the donor was concerned, but there's something not quite right about that, and it just doesn't look good. And coupled with the other developments we've now learned from the Sunday Times expose about Posh George, and I don't know how much detail you want me to go into on that.
Which is basically help with, social media, some, just lending him a property to stay in near Westminster, blah, 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 yes.
Yeah. In his own way, from what we know of Posh George, George Cottrell, he himself has questions to answer, and he's a bit of an opaque young man who we know very little of, except that he's a gambling addict and an ex-jailbird. So these are not good looks for Nigel Farage. No,
indeed. Do you think, though, there is an element of a stitch-up? Because my argument is that, two things could be true at the same time. I mean, it's perfectly reasonable for journalists to ask questions, absolutely, as I do. I've got no question with that. I do have some questions about Sky turning up at one of his houses when they knew, A, Nigel Farage was abroad, and B, it was publicised, and B, that it was already in the newspapers that his daughter lived in that home. I'm not happy about that. I think that did cross the line. Was it harassment? I wouldn't go that far. But is there an element where, like with the case against Marine Le Pen in France, the cases against Donald Trump in the US, they're actually banged to rights. Those cases are legitimate, but the decision to prosecute those cases against them as opposed to other people, and the timing of it, is politically motivated. Is there an element there at all of that?
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's like carry on up the Khyber. Infamy, they've all got an infamy. Well, they have. And it's quite understandable that a party, especially the Labour Party and previously the Tories, who see their own support being eroded by Nigel Farage and his cause, which is a right-wing one, will want to destroy that as a usurper of their position. But that's the sort of world we live in politics. And it's not just here, it's in every single country where democracy is involved, where two sides or three sides are fighting for the same purpose.
Yeah, indeed. Look, I mean, lots of focus on Nigel Farage, but in fact, I mean, really, we should have a lot more focus right now, and maybe it's rather convenient, on the man who is now definitely a dead cert to be our next Prime Minister. That's Andy Burnham. The nominations formally opened today for the Labour leadership contest. I think most people kind of thought it was already over and done with. The only final potential candidate was Al Khan's, the former Armed Forces Minister. He said yesterday he's supporting Andy Burnham. We expect, frankly, virtually all the MPs to do a bit of licking of the backside and grovelling for a decent job by publicly nominating Andy Burnham. And then 17th, next Friday, the 17th, he's going to be formally made the leader. And on the 20th, Monday the 20th, he is going to formally become our Prime Minister. Lots of accusations that we are in a zombie government stage at the moment. Our Prime Minister having just gone off to walk the red carpet at the Ankara NATO summit, when everyone knows he's not even a lame duck, he's a dead duck. Is there a real problem with the fact that, we had one government that came in after 4 years of opposition with no plan? Even Morgan McSweeney, the former Chief of Staff, has admitted they had no proper plan. They had no idea how hard governing would be, apparently. They just thought having a red rosette on would mean everything suddenly worked and the civil service would be on their side. And now we've got another man who we know doesn't have a plan. He's not spoken out on most of the major issues. No plan, it would appear, to tackle the real issues of defence. No plan to tackle the issues of the massive ballooning welfare bill. No plan, we understand, the fact he's even considering for Chancellor Ed Miliband any willingness to tackle the issue of net zero. No serious plan to tackle any of the major problems that we have.
No, and I think this is the biggest scandal of the moment. It's much bigger, in my view, than Nigel Farage's funding. I mean, this is democracy literally in action, or rather in inaction, because we are being run by a man, or effectively because he isn't Prime Minister yet, but he's dictating terms.
Yeah.
The real alleged Prime Minister is off elsewhere, being basically ignored by the whole world. But this guy has just walked in, got a seat in Parliament, and decided he wants the job. And the supine Labour Party, to its eternal shame, has just decided to let him have it without any manifesto, no indication of what he plans to do. And there he is right now, scrambling around to put together some sort of cabinet, some sort of policy, some sort of manifesto. I think it's an absolute disgrace.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely true. I did find it quite... I mean, the cheek of the Labour Party to say, oh, this by-election stunt that's totally unnecessary. You had 403 MPs to choose from to be your alternative to Keir Starmer. Not one of them was good enough. You got a guy to resign in return for getting a nice job in Andy Burnham's government, to give away his seat to Andy Burnham. I mean, stunt, I think we can safely say that was that. What do you make of this disability report as well? Carried out by a guy actually I've had a lot of time for over the years, Sir Stephen Timms. He's now Disability Minister, but who apparently, quite bizarrely, while saying the disability system, the payments for PIP, personal independence payments, we've heard so much about in recent years, while it has doubled since 2019, mostly since the start of COVID. He doesn't think there's a problem with current spending on it, even though 4 million Brits are now currently claiming that benefit. Supposedly a non-means tested in-work benefit, but in real practice, most people who go on it then give up work because it's an extra £10,000 a year on top of their benefits. So many of them are better off not working and don't even need to bother. I mean, what do you make of the fact you've got a man who says he doesn't think there's a problem with the current numbers?
Well, I think that Stephen Timms, as you say, perfectly nice man, I'm sure he is, means well. But frankly, nobody at the moment is in any position to reform what is a totally chaotic and basically corrupt system of welfare distribution. I mean, we've got a total of 9 million people on various forms of benefit, work-related and otherwise. I mean, that is a shocking statistic, and it is also a bill this country simply cannot afford for very much longer. Something is going to have to be done. But the moment you start doing anything when it comes to reforming welfare, unless you're spending extra money to smooth the path, there are cries and screams from the charities and the left. the shroud wavers about how people will die.
Well, and this is it, but always, when you have a conversation, again, I don't want it cut for people, my caller Vivian a few moments ago, she's, got progressive MS, she had to, had to put a lift in their home, they need a car that can take a wheelchair, there are clearly extra expenses in her life that you and I don't have, and I'm more than happy and proud as a citizen taxpayer of this country to pay taxes to help her have a better life. That's what we do in a civilised society. But if you have a discussion about maybe a load of perfectly able-bodied people who are a bit anxious or claim they've got autism or ADHD mildly, shouldn't be entitled to extra benefits, frankly, or benefits of any sort, the BBC will do a big report with people in wheelchairs saying we're so worried we're going to lose our benefits. But we're not talking about those people. That we're literally doing the opposite of talking about those people. But there's dishonesty in this debate, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. And your caller, proves the case that
exactly.
Hard cases make bad law. What you've got out in the great world outside our studio here is a lot of people, millions of people, who have pounced upon a free ride.
Yeah.
And not only are they pouncing on it, they're being assisted by misguided charities and also the artificial intelligence where you just put in, how do I claim this? What are the procedures? What symptoms do I have to claim I've got? And once they're presented with this evidence, the welfare distributors seem to have no answer. They aren't able to say, hang on a moment, can you just prove some of this?
Yeah. But also it's on Zoom, online. No one's actually seeing people in person, and then if you get it, no one's even going to review it for another 3 years because there's such a big backlog. What a surprise! I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Trevor Kavanagh, always good to talk to you, former political editor at The Sun. Thank you very much, Steve. Philip Ingram, do you want to come back in on any of that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that struck me what Trevor said was Andy Burnham coming in and he's effectively being crowned, but we're not seeing anything that's coming out of him, and he needs to very quickly start to outline his policies, his plan, and where he's going to get the pounds from, because if we don't get that quickly, I think he's going to be torn to shreds before he gets.
I think he's going to lose popularity even quicker than Keir Starmer, and he's the one who's the nice guy. Everyone like. If one more minister goes on telly and says, "But he's like a really likeable guy," I don't think likeable is going to cut it, guys. Just saying. 10:49 is time. Up next, we're going to be talking to the director of For Women Scotland, Susan Smith, about they won that Supreme Court case over a year ago now. Why now we are looking at huge amounts of money, millions and millions of pounds being spent to actually change our toilets to change rooms, to actually obey the law to single-sex spaces. We'll talk about that and plenty more besides. This is Talk.
And I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which should happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. This will be a people versus the establishment by-election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. 10:51 is the time. Let's turn our attention now to the latest, well, I mean, just madness that we're still fighting for basic women's rights against the trans activists who are demanding, basically, for a load of men to be in women's and girls' spaces. Let's talk to Susan Smith, who's director of For Women Scotland, who won, of course, that fantastic Supreme Court ruling April last year, which for some reason doesn't seem to have quite been recognised by most of the country yet. A very good morning to you, Susan.
Morning.
Always good to talk to you. There are a couple of stories I want to talk to you about today. One is that apparently we're looking at tens of millions of pounds to be spent revamping nearly 13,000 toilets, 5,000 changing rooms across Britain, so that they are compliant with new guidance on single-sex spaces. That new guidance, by the way, being basically enacting the law that, as it always has been. At least 18,000 signs may also still need tweaking in gyms, hospitals, town halls, leisure centres to ensure transgender identified people use the correct facilities, as in, very clearly, they use the ones that matches their biological sex. It is extraordinary the scale on which the trans activism managed to change something which was basically against the law.
Isn't it? I think this is yet another example of the sort of howl of disappointed narcissistic rage that they're not getting what they want.
Yes.
I don't know what they're doing with these toilets and changing rooms, whether they're gilding them in gold and studding the signs with diamonds, because I cannot for the life of me work out how a very few, because this, in the grand scheme of things, there are millions and millions of toilets and changing rooms across the country. So this tiny number apparently are going to cost the price of several houses to sort out. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
Or rather, several housing estates to sort out.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does seem, as you say, I mean, it's changing a sign. I mean, you can get that done pretty cheaply, just to, you can make those online, can't you, for instance? But also, I mean, again, maybe you might need to take some urinals out of, but I think maybe we can cope with those being there in the loos. It does seem utterly bizarre. But again, what was really bizarre was allowing men who pretend that they're women or think that they're women to be using women's and girls' facilities. However, is there not a way around this by simply saying in a lot of places, well, we have mixed facilities? Because there's been a bit of an outcry about, I think it's H&M, where they have mixed changing rooms, which is quite useful if, 5'11" woman, and you're queuing for the ladies' changing room and there's a 10-hour queue, but the men's has got 2 blokes in it, and you can go, great. But we have seen cases where, men have been arrested for, basically, they go in the changing rooms, oh, good, there's an 11-year-old girl next door, climbing over the top, take a photo of her changing. And this does happen, because the weird thing is, perverts will use these things, and it's not being transphobic, it's that when you have rules that are supposedly just for trans-identified people, other bad people will use those rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hear about this all the time, don't we? People slipping a phone underneath the changing room door to record whoever is in there. And I think the thing is, the organisations that think they can get away with saying, oh, we only provide mixed sex, they're going to get a rude awakening, because they can't. There are always going to be some people who are going to want that single sex
but do they
facility.
have a legal requirement, a legal right to it? I know, in schools you do. I think leisure centres, public buildings, there is a requirement that there are single sex. But in a nightclub, say, I can remember even a few years back, a Christmas party, and we were with our whole floor, Talk Sport and Virgin and Talk, and we're all together at a party, and we were at a club, which was great, but it had mixed loos. But there were 2 different loos, and the women very, very quickly just went, this is our one, get the hell out. Nothing to discuss. And all the men were more than happy, because they don't want to be in the loos with women.
No, they don't. But I think where there's, in theory, they could just provide mixed sex. But what would happen if they did that was any woman who had been excluded or discriminated against or felt she'd been harassed because this was the only provision on offer would be able to take these people to court, because you're not allowed to discriminate under the Equality Act. So if it turned out you were discriminating by not providing a service for women,
I mean, it's all just got mad. It wasn't. there wasn't a problem that needed to be solved, was there? Realistically, that was the issue. And again, let's be honest. I keep being told this by trans activists. You know, these trans women, they call them, they're trans-identified men. You know, you wouldn't even know if they were in there. Vast majority of the time, I'm pretty sure women have got very good. We know exactly who a man is and who a woman is. And if there are a few very svelte, feminine men who can pass as women, then it probably wouldn't be an issue. They made it the issue.
They made it the issue, and they insisted, because actually, you know, there's always somebody. I heard a guy last night saying, well, you know, there's stealth 70-year passing trans woman. But that's not the majority, because they'd be the first to object if we said, OK, but you can only come in if you completely look like a woman, because they don't want that. They want the 6'3" bloke with full beard.
And my absolute favourite thing is when you get on social media, they'll say to like people like you or me or anyone else, yeah, but you know, you look like you're trans anyway. So they're... Well, I mean, it makes me laugh so hard because their best insult is that you look trans. Like, isn't that a bit transphobic? I mean, I just think it's hilarious. Just finally, I also want to ask you about this because I'm really angry about this new safeguarding guidance, safeguarding inverted commas, guidance published by the Department for Education, of course, run by Bridget Phillipson, who's totally and utterly a trans maiden on this issue. So schools will not have to tell parents if their child is questioning their gender, if they confide in a teacher, unless they ask to change their name or their pronouns in school. Is that the right balance, or do parents have a right to know?
I think parents have a right to know, and they have a right to know under convention rights. So I'm not sure this would stand. It's very entertaining because the other side are always talking about the human rights and let's take a court to Strasbourg. But I think trying to stop parents knowing what their children are doing is an interference in family.
I mean, if a child is distressed, if they say they were anorexic or they have something else, they confide in a teacher, the teacher would have a safeguarding duty to tell the authorities or the parent, depending on who was relevant, wouldn't they?
Yeah, unless they feel that the child is at risk of harm from the parent, they should not be withholding that kind of information from families. And I think, as I said, I don't think this would survive a legal challenge because there's a right to family life, and the school is effectively usurping the parental role there.
Yeah, it's just extraordinary, and we know that the kids are being fed this stuff in schools. I mean, see one more trans pride flag around the place. By the way, I thought it was a month. They got. It's middle of July, still going. Thank you, as always. Great voice of reason, as always. Susan Smith, Director of For Women Scotland. Philip Ingram, quick word. You got about 10 seconds?
Yeah, the trans extremists have spoiled it for the very few that are the normal trans.
But normal trans people who just want to live. Exactly. I don't care what you want to call yourself or what you want to wear. Exactly. Just go about your business.
But the extremism's just destroyed it for them.
And I think there are people who genuinely do feel that, and I think also a lot of gay people as well also feel like, wait, don't include us in this madness. We don't want to do this. Anyway, lots more to come, lots more to talk about. Do stay tuned. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio, on your smart speaker, watching your YouTube or on your connected device, thank you for joining us. Don't forget, you can always go to my YouTube page if you miss anything on the show, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up, we're going to be discussing more about that by-election in Clacton. Interesting development here that reform activists have been told by the Labour Party to switch... Sorry, reform activists, sorry, not by the Labour Party. Reform activists have been urged to switch focus from the Manchester mayoralty election, which is coming up on August the 6th, and to actually focus on Nigel Farage's Clacton contest. Very interesting, given that he basically only faces Count Binface, a joke candidate who stands in virtually every election, but also reclaims Lawrence Fox. Has he got egg on his face, or is this a masterstroke, as John, one of our callers, said a little bit earlier? Plus, we're going to be talking about PIP. It's Britain's main disability benefit. 4 million people are claiming it. If you get the maximum, which most people who get it do, you're looking at an extra £10,000 a year on top of other benefits, or on top of your salary, whether you work or not. But actually, a new report carried out by the government's disability minister, Sir Stephen Timms, says it deters people from taking up work and it's not fit for purpose. But extraordinarily, even though it's doubled in the terms of the number of claimants since 2019, doubled, he thinks that's not a problem. And where we are now and our spending on it now isn't a problem. It's just if it carries on going up. I mean, these people are not serious. Plus, we're going to be talking about the US striking Iran for a second night, with Donald Trump vowing to hit 20 times harder. I personally am relieved that he thinks that the ceasefire is over, because you can't negotiate with lunatics who want to kill you. We're going to talk about all of that and plenty more besides. And joining me for that chat, as always, I'd like to say, it's Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer.
Morning again.
We seem to have lost your... Is it MBE?
MBE.
MBE? Why have we not got his MBE written on? It's not on his title.
My bloody efforts. Excuse my French.
I'm shocked by your language. Absolutely shocked, sir. Look, so much to talk about. I do want to just reiterate that news. Very sad news. Bonnie Tyler, total eclipse of the heart singer from the 80s, our era.
Got it.
Very sadly died, and only at the age of 75.
Yeah,
very sad.
I know, very sad indeed.
We've lost a lot of good ones lately, of, you know, people from our past. I guess that's what's going to happen. We're at that age where our favourite stars are going to...
Yeah, does that mean that we're getting older? No, okay, couldn't do.
You see, I often think of my parents as middle-aged, and I realise they're in their 80s. Oh, no, I am.
Yes.
That's a horrible revelation at 50. I don't feel old at all.
Yeah, but you know, the difficulty is then realising that you should decide to grow up at some stage. Nah, definitely not.
Going on holiday, genuinely. You know, the first thing I booked, we're going to Malta, first thing I booked was a party boat. Terrible. I'm genuine. I just refuse to grow up. Got to have fun. I do all this serious stuff, but, you know, I like to have fun in my spare time. So much to talk about. As I said, let's start, but let's not stay on it too long. Although, again, you're welcome to put your calls in on this, and I know a lot of you still will, on Nigel Farage and that decision to call that by-election. A lot of people are saying, you know, he's got egg on his face, it's going to backfire horribly. Certainly, that is the view. You know, we spoke to Trevor Kavanagh earlier, and he said it's a tactical error. Fascinating that Reform UK activists have been urged to divert from the Greater Manchester mayoral by-election. And there really was this idea that although Reform lost the by-election in Makerfield, 35, they got 35% of the vote, though, to be fair. I mean, that was very good second place. But, you know, there were particular issues there going on in that seat, with Andy Burnham winning. But actually that the mayoral election is the bigger prize and could, given the local elections, easily fall to Reform. That should be an absolute priority. But no, now they've got the Clacton by-election. Now, the mayoralty involves a hell of a lot more people, a lot more power. But this is the leader of the party calling this, what many are saying, a fake contest in Clacton. But that WhatsApp message shared by party members in North West England says the message could not be more clear. We now need all of our fantastic activists, branch officers and councillors to come and help us in Clacton. Again, that's another tactical error, isn't it?
It is. Selection and maintenance of the aim is an adage in military planning and military execution.
Okay,
he's getting this wrong. So you choose one aim and you go for it. You then don't get distracted with other things.
So you need to have a word with Donald Trump as well about that.
Correct.
Yes.
Nigel Farage has now split the effort of the party, and therefore
because winning the Manchester mayoralty would have been icing on the cake.
The chances are he's going to lose both.
You think he could lose in Clacton? You think you did the numbers on the numbers who voted for Nigel Farage and voted for other parties in the last general election. There are more people who could choose. We're all going to vote for Count Binface or
I think you may find that there's a lot of people go out there and go, right, my usual party isn't standing. I'm going to go and vote. And I'm just going to go.
Won't most people just
Binface.
not bother voting? Isn't the whole point of this is a bit of a silly damp squib?
Well, it will be because the numbers are going to be down. So what Nigel Farage is going to lose is the mandate that he had beforehand, and therefore the major political parties are going to turn around and say, hey, your vote's gone down, your percentage of the vote's gone down.
They keep saying that. It's like when he lost in Makerfield. I'm sorry, no one. I mean, come on. I know some people were saying they could win it, but it is interesting. Let me just find something that Nigel Farage has said today. Calgi, sorry, I can never remember Calgi's his Daily Express. Christian Calgi, apologies, Christian's first name. He's actually at the Daily Mail. Actually, used to be at the Express, and he said Nigel Farage admits he was wrong-footed by all the other parties, refusing to compete in his Clacton by-election. When he was asked if he'd considered the possibility of fighting as the only sort of proper candidate, he said, "No, of course not." But he's basically saying, he's dismissed allegations he could become a laughingstock. But actually, if Rachel Reeves is able to score a point as a chancellor, the person who officially allows you to withhold, stay down from your seat, and you point to some silly job, and then the seat becomes open. If she's able to go, if he wants to spend the rest of his summer fighting a bin. She's able to get a little point score. Yeah. If Rachel Reeves is able to score a point on you, that doesn't make you look good.
No, it does not make you look good at all.
And if he gets back in, as I would expect he would be, I disagree with you on that. He gets back in, and then he's going to face exactly the same issues. And saying it's let the people decide, but if the people are going to decide, the people should decide based on the full knowledge of what the outcome of that inquiry is.
He's miscalculated quite severely, and the trouble is the impact that there's going to be on the credibility of reform, because we're not seeing many substantial plans coming out of them at the moment. He still doesn't have a defence spokesman when everything is all about defence at the minute. We're not seeing...
In fact, neither does Andy Burnham.
Well, exactly. But, no, he has just come out with something on defence.
He's going to give defence contracts to British firms.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to tell the British public how much it's going to cost them. I'm sure
the EU will be delighted with that,
how much pain they're going to achieve. But Nigel Farage is getting things wrong. He doesn't usually get things wrong, and this
a lot of people are saying he's rattled, and a lot of people are also saying that he doesn't really want to be Prime Minister. He likes the idea of it, but doesn't really want to be Prime Minister. It's a different kind of job. He loves campaigning. I mean, I don't know whether this is true or not.
I'd agree with that assessment.
I think everyone in politics wants to be Prime Minister.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I know some that don't. But I'd agree with the assessment that he probably doesn't want to be Prime Minister. He loves being a disruptor. He's a very, very good disruptor.
It's a very different job. And we've seen again and again, actually, a lot of people who are very good at campaigning. That's a very different job from actually running the country.
And the other difficulty is, who would he then hand it over to, and would they have the same sort of popularity? Because reform, as a brand, everyone thinks of Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is reform. Reform is Nigel Farage. And the rest at the minute are dressing until they start to get some policies and some structure and some political experience.
But that said, again, I do think they are out to get him. I do, but then that's an argument not to give them any ammunition, and taking £5 million from crypto billionaires and not declaring it gives them ammunition.
Exactly.
I think it was the wrong thing to take the money, and I think it was the wrong thing not to declare the money once you've taken it. And I've said that to Nigel. I've said it on air. And when he said to me, and I really don't like even my friends saying this to me, it's none of your business. I'm a voter. It's bloody well my business when politicians get a big sum of money in their bank account and I don't know what it's for because by definition that could be money that could affect. I mean, you gave me £5 million, it would absolutely affect how I would my policy on things. That's how human beings work. That's why people give big money donations. I don't believe that anyone. Late trade unions give Labour money so that the Labour Party can act in their interests.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what they do it for.
The thing that got me is his bank was so concerned about the money that comes in. They filled in the little report that they had to send to the National Crime Agency to say, we're not quite sure where this has come from. We just need to flag it up to you.
Someone gets £5 million into their personal bank account, it should absolutely always be flagged.
Yeah.
Every single time.
And you know, again, that hasn't been properly explained. You know, he should overplay the rules rather than underplay them.
Always. It's just crazy. And again, there's stuff about Richard Tice, about, you know, he's saying that, you know, he thinks that his bank statements and stuff may have been leaked by the National Crime Agency, the only people who would know certain information. That's his claim. You know, I don't know. You know, journalists have got information. Have they got it through nefarious means? Have they realised it was or not? I don't know. I'm not making any allegations or aspersions against anybody. I don't know if there's been wrongdoing or not. I don't know. It's above my pay grade in terms of, like, I don't understand the tax situation or the money situation on that stuff. And I don't think most of us do. But again, I just think if you're involved in politics, you need to make sure everything is straightforward, above board. If in doubt, pay more tax. Because of my job, I'm literally, my accountant should be going like, you know, oh, you don't have to pay that. You know, no, I'm genuine. I'm like, they'll come after me. I don't want to be somebody who's, I don't want to ever be a hypocrite on anything. I just want to be, I got good advice from my dad many years ago. Never mess with the tax man. Don't just be straight. Just be straight. So, and you sleep at night then.
Yes.
When you know that you're just an honest person and you're straightforward, you sleep at night, and that works for me. I'm sorry. I'm also a rubbish liar. So I'd just be really bad at it. I'm really,
So you're
really
not qualified
bad
to go
at
into
lying.
politics then?
That's the thing. I could go into politics. I reckon I would last 5 minutes.
Yeah, because you'd be telling the truth all the time. Yeah.
And I couldn't toe a party line.
Yeah,
I'd be sitting there going, Can you imagine my facial expressions when I'm being interviewed on the BBC Morning Round or whatever, and I'm having to defend a policy that I know is nonsense? I'd be like this, going...
Yeah, we just had the JHB party.
I mean, we should do this. The Empress Party, I think you'll find is what it's called. Right, look, let's talk about Andy Burnham, though, because he's going to be our Prime Minister. He's going to be unopposed. We know that now. That's it. Leadership nominations have opened. Everyone's going to nominate him, and then we're going to have Prime Minister Andy Burnham, and we haven't got a clue what he's going to do other than this nonsense about a half in, half out Downing Street in the north, in Manchester, and building some council houses. We don't know where he's going to get the labour or the materials from for doing that, and he's now talking about focusing defence spending on UK firms, but. You know, the defence spending, the new bill for the Defence Investment Plan, 15 billion quid extra, isn't 15 billion quid, and it's not costed anyway. Smoke and mirrors, as you said earlier, and we still don't have the defences this country needs. There is nothing that we've seen from him at all about what he's going to do about benefits, what he's going to seriously do about defence, what he's going to do about law and order, what he's going to do about the immigration, legal and illegal, and deportations. Nothing about what he's going to do about energy prices and net zero. I mean, we just benefits, and again, that's in the news. We'll come to that. There's nothing. This man is literally being elected like blind. We may as well have just closed our eyes, walked into a darkened room blindfolded so we had a triple chance, couldn't see, and gone, picked out the bloke in the black T-shirt and said, you'll do, you're better than Keir Starmer. Every single cabinet minister or minister I see, or Labour MP who supports Andy Burnham, who comes on the telly, the first thing they will say is, he's such a good communicator, he's very likeable. I don't think that counts for much. I would rather have someone who was absolutely foul and horrible, but competent and knew what he wanted to do. I don't think he has a clue what he's going to do.
Well, we've got no evidence of it. He's coming up with sound bites all of the time, and those sound bites aren't underpinned with...
All of the time, he barely speaks.
You know, those sound bites aren't underpinned by any policy, any plans, or any understanding of where the pounds are coming from. We need... politics by substance, not politics by sound bites, and he's fallen into the old trap again. And he's not coming out, as you say, with many sound bites. That's even more worrying.
There's just so little from him. And, you know, Mr. Cheeky Chappy Jokey, it's all lovely. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he's not stupid. I mean, he went from to getting I think a first in English from Cambridge. I mean, I'm not disparaging his intelligence or anything like. I'm sure he wants to do a good job. I just think he hasn't got a clue what the real problems of this country are and what he's going to do about them.
A clear example of that is this number 10 of the North is complete garbage.
Yes,
it's going to cost a fortune to try and build it. That's money that is going to have to come from somewhere else. And it's not going to be connected to where most of politics is going on in London, all the other departments.
We have a capital
so he's
city.
going to have to, it's just, he just doesn't understand it. All because he wants to live at home, not in London.
I mean, he just basically wants to, with government by Zoom, it's not going to work.
No.
Let's also talk about this disability report. Labour is in denial over disability benefit cuts, is what the Tories are saying. The government is failing to commit to cut the booming benefits bill, which is, I mean, off the scale big. Even that £5 billion off, it wasn't even a cut to benefits that Keir Starmer failed to get through his backbenchers. It was to cut the increase by £5 billion. But Sir Stephen Timms is the Disability Minister. He's been carrying out an interim review of personal independence payments. That's PIP, that's the main disability benefit. He says they're not fit for purpose. He says a lot of people are saying they're dehumanising, but also they're a barrier to work. Even the people who start on them on work, because this is an in-work, supposedly an in-work benefit, it's not means tested. You can be on benefits or in work, full-time or part-time, you can still get this benefit. And the maximum you can be paid is £194 a week, and that's basically 10 grand a year. So a lot of extra money on top of wages or benefits. But not a lot extra if you really, really need it. And we spoke to a caller earlier, Vivian, who's got ME and needs it for the very over the years, the expensive cost of installing a lift in their home, getting a car that you could get a wheelchair in, very expensive. These are clear extra costs that someone with a serious disability and illness needs, which we should be happy to help fund as a nation.
Very much so.
That's what civil society does. But why somebody's got ADHD or autism, or why they need a car, why they should get any extra money for any of it, is utterly beyond me. Stephen Timms didn't seem to think there was any issue with the fact that the number of people claiming this benefit has doubled to 4 million people since 2019. Most of those are mental health claimants, and most of those are people claiming for autism, ADHD, and stress and anxiety, and they are largely younger people. I'm sorry, got a load of people who are swinging the lead, who are being infantilised and medicalised, who frankly need some more tough parenting and some tough governmenting, and we're paying the bill.
Bit of tough love, not taking the PIP as they're doing. And Sir Stephen Timms hit the nail on the head and described why this has happened. They changed the definition. Well, how to fix it? Change the definition back again.
He said, but that's it. He was questioned by the BBC. But he said, well, look, we changed the definition of disability. Yes, we've changed it to mean people who aren't disabled. We changed it to mean people who could live otherwise completely normal lives. Having a bad day, there are plenty of people who've got depression who work. There are plenty of people with anxiety who work. And again, what do you mean by anxiety?
Yeah, and it's not the fault of lots of these claimants, because they're going to go, oh, someone's now offering me free money. Yes, please give me free money.
Well, I think there is. I know. I think it's immoral.
It is immoral.
I've said this a million times, and I'm going to keep banging on about it. We need to bring back a sense of shame.
But there isn't a sense of shame for anything in the country.
But that's
the
exactly
trouble.
because there isn't anymore. You should be ashamed to claim benefits you don't need. No one who needs those benefits should ever be ashamed of it.
You should have to go into the dole office on a weekly basis and get your card stamped where everyone can see you going in and coming out. And that would bring a bit of shame in.
I don't think no. They think that we're mugs for going to work. No, I think most people have. I've got a very good friend who works at the benefits office, and one of the things she told me, which absolutely blew my mind, was you'll get somebody who has had an accident of some sort. They, they do physical work, so they can't do that work. And and they can't just suddenly retrain, and their knee is they're gonna be signed off for 6 months because they won't be able to do that work for 6 months. Having had a long-term knee injury, sitting at a desk, I can understand that. But no one reviews that. Okay, so you think they're signed off for 6 months? No, they're signed off. Right? It just carries on. The money doesn't stop. It just carries on. No one gets reviewed unless they go, oh, hi, look, I don't need this money anymore because I'm back at work. The money carries on. Money goes into your bank account. Many people may not notice. Many people might think, well, you know what, I've got to be honest with you, I'm minimum wage, I quite need that money, maybe I'm entitled to it. And he just goes, and they're basically, the backlog of reviewing people is about 3 years slow. So you can get, you needed the money and it was a legitimate claim, but you don't need it anymore, but we are still paying someone that money. Yeah. Now, I'm sorry, but the benefits office staff who are allowing that to happen, I believe they need to be held personally liable and responsible. Yeah,
very much so. Well, they start with the minister who's allowing the policy to allow that to happen, because they could change the policy and just say it has to be reviewed every month.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
and the other way of stopping doctors from signing off is you give doctors GP surgeries an extra big budget, but that extra big budget is all the benefits that's there, and you say, for every person you sign off for sick, it comes out of your budget.
I just think so. There's got to be something. It can't be beyond the wit of man for there to be something in between people. And you've seen this with people who've got long-term disability. You know, someone who's, they're paraplegic. You know, their legs aren't going to grow back, their arms aren't going to grow back. They can't do whatever work. You know, or they've got a wasting disease. Like, you know, they're going to get worse, not better. Or at the very least, they're going to stay the same. And once signed on, of course, these people don't need to be, you know, maybe a cursory check every year or something, just on paper. But they don't need to be assessed. They don't need to be humiliated and dehumanised. Absolutely. But, you know, if you want to get extra money, I do think you're going to have to go through some sort of process. There's got to be someone who's not a medical doctor saying, well, why can't you go to work because you're in this unfit state? But there's got to be something between that and, I'm saying the key word, yes, sometimes I feel suicidal on a Monday morning. Tick. You can get benefits for life. Somewhere in between there, those two sides, there's got to be a sweet point where we are a bit more sensible. I want to hear from you on that. Give me a call. What's your reaction to PIP is not fit for purpose? No, because it's doubled in 6 years. Have the number of disabled people doubled in 6 years? Apparently so. I mean, at this rate, no one's going to be working in this country. We're all just going to be on the sick. We're just going to be a benefit claimant with an island attached. That's what we're going to be. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000. Text on 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged to the national rate and text cost £1. Standard network rate message. And as you know, you're always entitled to call in on anything you want. If you want to call in on Nigel Farage, and I know a lot of you do, and that by-election call, is it egg on his face or is it a masterstroke, sort of our caller said earlier? Get in touch. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
And I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which would happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. This will be a people versus the establishment by-election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk the Home of Common Sense for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Coming up very soon, we're going to be getting Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, former Royal Navy commander, in the studio to talk about not NATO summit and indeed what is going on with Iran. I'll get his thoughts on Andy Burnham and his plans for defence spending as well. And no doubt he and Philip are going to be old muckers together because you know
we know each other.
Just the entire military world, just you all know each other.
Of course.
Of course, just very, because not that many of you.
No,
that's the
trouble.
I would like
we need more.
I would like a bigger military. They didn't all know each other. Right, let's get your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. And these calls all on Nigel Farage. What a surprise. Miranda is in Cumbria. Hello, Miranda.
Hello.
Hello. What do you want to say?
Well, it was about Nigel Farage. I don't really... This is purely from a personal perspective.
Yep.
I don't think he does have egg on his face, because I listened to the House yesterday, Prime Minister's questions, and they almost had contempt for the British public and the people of Clacton, where they all started guffawing and laughing about Nigel Farage and taking the vote to the people.
Yeah.
And I found that quite insulting, really.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yes, and then I looked at Camp Bin Faces. There's a lovely video out there with him at the Cambridge Union Debating Society, and he presented a programme on either BBC or Radio 4, and he is just part of the same institution.
Oh, of course he is.
It's just, I am just truly flabbergasted by it all.
But okay, it's all backfired. Nigel Farage has told journalists today, he didn't expect that the other parties would stand. Now, let's face it, he stood 7 times before he won his 8th attempt at being an MP in Clacton. And the reason he lost every single time was not because he didn't have support, it's because all the other parties basically colluded against him, threw the kitchen sink at him to try and make sure he wasn't elected. I do think there's an establishment stitch up. However, I think that parliamentary investigation is absolutely legitimate. I don't think... he shouldn't have failed to declare that money. I'm not sure he should have taken the money in the first place. And I question anyone who gives £5 million to anyone in that scenario. I'm sorry, I do. And I'm a voter. I'm allowed to have a say on it. But what is this by-election proving? What does it tell us?
Well, if basically if people vote for him, the normal population really don't care, because they see the rest of the politicians as being corrupt too. Whether you take £5 or whether you take 5 million as backhanded,
but it's not the same.
They all add up.
I think all the political parties, they take money, and they take that money from people who only give them money. They go, oh no, our views align. Yeah, they get access. Even if you have a big dinner, these big fundraisers, and basically the more money you give, the more important the person sitting at your table. You get face-to-face time with politicians. That's why they give money. We all know that. But is that an argument for, if Nigel says he's anti-something, he's different, should he be doing the same?
Well, with regard to his finances, I don't think, unless he's doing something corrupt with that, and they haven't proved that,
no, absolutely
then
not.
He can do what he wants. And the rest of the Labour Party didn't. Obviously, their clothes, their glasses, and other money. They didn't declare that to the last minute. But Nigel Farage, the panel which are going to judge him, there are 3 Labour politicians and 1 Liberal Democrat. And that seems highly unfair.
No, I think in total there is no Reform member on there, as true. I think there's 7 politicians, none of whom are Reform. They only got a handful of MPs. And the other are 7 lay people. I think that, these are committees which have found, with a majority of Tories on, against the Tory members. So I think these investigations take way too long. I think these things could be dealt with in a couple of weeks rather than what they do. But I think on this, frankly, it got him banged to rights. But we can all agree to differ. I really appreciate your call. Thank you very much indeed. And I agree with you in terms of the contempt they show Reform and Nigel Farage in particular in Parliament. I think that's just insulting to voters. David is in Essex. David, what do you want to say?
Oh, hello. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Well, thanks for calling, mate.
I think the problem isn't Nigel Farage. And by the way, can I just say that I support reform?
Yeah.
The problem isn't Nigel Farage. The problem is that the rules that they're working under. If you're a police officer and you get some money put into your account, you can't turn around and say, oh, Fred the fraudster thinks I'm a nice guy and he's given me some money. You're going to be told you've taken a backhander, you've taken a bribe.
Yep.
Same if you're a prison officer. So how is it our politicians can be given money and no one actually goes, this is wrong?
His argument is it was a personal gift, and he was not only was he not an MP, he had no intention of standing as an MP at that time, and he really didn't. But the rules also state that once you become an MP, any money in the last year, you do have to declare.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I understand that to an extent, but I'm still saying that this is the guy who is potentially going to be our Prime Minister, and by the way, I hope he is. Yeah. But he's in someone's pocket to the tune of £5 million.
You think he shouldn't have taken the money?
You know, I don't think he should.
Yeah,
when
but that's
Starmer was taking the money for his suits and his glasses and everything else, I was going, here we go, another politician sticking his snout in the trough.
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. David, thank you very much for that call. We're going to take a very quick break, and then we're going to have Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry in the studio. We talk all things defence. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 11:33 is the time. They're already going to be trouble. Got the two of them together. Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer, still with me in the studio. Now we're joined by Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, CBE. Am I the only one without any sort of award here? Mind you, also
it's coming.
Haven't fought from a country. Fair enough. Former Royal Navy commander, both in the studio. Behave, both of you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you in the studio. I feel I've already lost control and we haven't even got to a single question. Chris Parry, let's talk first of all about NATO summit. Did the other NATO leaders get away lightly because Donald Trump's attention was all fixed on Ukraine when it came, on Iran when it came to basically rebuilding their defence forces?
A little bit. I don't think Spain came off that lightly, to tell you the truth.
I want nothing to do with Spain.
Absolutely. And I think it makes Gibraltar very important now, of course, for the United States and for NATO, if that's going to happen, because the United States has a base in Rota. They need to be geographically based in the Mediterranean, so I suspect Gibraltar is going to be very important in that.
And this is one of the things, actually, we had a former commander of American forces in Europe, retired Lieutenant Colonel Ben Hodges, on the show yesterday, pointing out, that actually, we're not just here to protect Europeans, he says. It's this American interests are in Europe and in the Med and for Africa, etc. This really doesn't matter. No doubt at all, Donald Trump's tension on Iran looks like that 60-day ceasefire is over. Mind you, we thought that pretty much every day since it's been in place. What do you think the state of play is right now? Because I don't think you can necessarily read anything into what Donald Trump says.
Absolutely. I think looking at what's going on in Iran at the moment, Julia, is you've got about 8 different factions, and they're all fighting it out as to who's actually going to run the country, and they're all armed. And they're all seeking to use their weapons when they want to, whether it's for their internal advantage or indeed to
So we haven't just got the IRGC in control?
That's right. There are a lot of other groups that also have access, and if they want to fire off a few weapons, they do. And I'm afraid to say that the Americans have to respond. I'm surprised the Americans actually haven't seized the Straits of Hormuz. They could
Can they do that?
Yes, they can. If they seize the northern shore, for example, there's only one access road down the coast between the mountains and the sea. It sounds very Byronic, doesn't it? Frankly, if anything comes down that road, the Americans will destroy it. And I think, you know, if you control the Straits of Hormuz, you break the regime. It's as simple as that.
But if it's so easy, A, why didn't they do it at the beginning of this war? And B, why didn't they do it quite some time ago before they wrecked the world economy?
Because I think they thought they could achieve their political objectives with the initial strike. And if you look at the military objectives, they were all achieved. They defanged their ballistic missile capability, they stopped their nuclear programme, and they set the conditions.
They paused their nuclear programme. We've no evidence they've stopped it.
I think they've destroyed pretty much all their sort of weapons capacity. There's no doubt about that. They've got some...
weren't we told a year ago, in the 12-day war, that the nuclear capacity had been destroyed?
It depends who you listen to, really. I mean, the trouble is in modern warfare, Julia, information warfare plays a huge part.
Yeah.
Phil and I have been involved in that. And you've got to win the virtual as well as the real war. And so there's a constant interplay between what you say in terms of bait and what you say in terms of what you're trying to achieve.
Because there's a lot of bluster on both sides, and then we found out that, you know, talks are going on, and Donald Trump will say, well, you know, there's not going to be any more talks. And he says this morning or overnight, yeah, you know, they've been on the phone, they want to talk. And for a while, we weren't even sure, you know, who were they talking to? Was it the leader of the parliament? You know, was it representatives of the supposed current supreme leader? Is he still alive? It's fascinating, I have to say, especially the BBC coverage of the 3-day funeral, I would say celebrations of the death of Khamenei. But I mean, the coverage as if he's some sort of, you know, as if he's an American president who'd been assassinated, as opposed to a man who went out and murdered 40,000 young people on the streets simply for demanding, you know, democracy or just even, you know, food they could afford on the streets in January. I mean, it is quite extraordinary, the coverage we've seen. But I mean, is there any evidence that this war can be won in the terms of what many people would like to see is the removal of this regime? Because you can pause their urges to get or ability to get a nuclear weapon or to wage war against any other Gulf allies or against Israel, but while the regime is still in place. Their aim since 1979, and it has not changed, it was made very clear at the funerals yesterday, you know, is to destroy America, Israel, Britain and Western civilization.
Well, on that basis, the war has to continue. I'm going to stick my neck out and say that by the end of the year, you'll see a significant change of emphasis and regime in Iran. I think it's fragmenting. I think its economy is collapsing, and we're not actually seeing just how bad it is. 70% of Iran's population is under 35. They want to be doing what you and I do, frankly. And we're almost at the point now where I think the fact that comes into play will be really important. And I think by the end of this year, you could see the end of both that regime and indeed the regime in the Kremlin.
And really?
Yep.
Why in the Kremlin?
Because you're seeing... One of the things I do when I think about the future, I would say there are no black swans. There are actually quite a lot of grey cygnets around. And when the grey cygnets start to flock together, the black swan comes on behind it normally. There are a lot of grey cygnets.
Vladimir Putin, I mean, look, the war is not going well in Ukraine for him. There was a point when it just looked like not just a stalemate, but that Ukraine was being beaten back. It definitely is going the other way now. That said, you know, the wave of strikes we've seen on Kyiv, 26 people dying in one night. Again, no one seems to have a problem with him striking civilian targets and not caring. But when all the people who go out on protest, but they didn't have enough weaponry to defend themselves from that. We're struggling in Europe to get the weaponry to give to Ukraine. Vladimir Putin isn't going to leave the Kremlin unless he's in a coffin, because he knows he's got too many enemies. There's no way he could go. So why do you think he's on his way out?
Because there are all sorts of signals with the people around him that he's adopting a more collegiate style.
Which is not like him.
Not like him, which either indicates he's not that well, or indeed...
We've had that talk since the beginning of the Ukraine war, that he's not well.
He is not well. It's just how serious he is, I think,
he's a psychopath, we know that. He could claim PIP. He's got a mental health problem.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes.
I think they are setting up a succession process at the moment, to tell the truth, in the Kremlin. If you read the signals, I mean, Phil and I look at this all the time, you're seeing people emerging who are not falling out of top story windows. That's a clear indication.
And they would normally have already. Philip,
Yeah.
can I ask you, do you agree that Putin may be on his way out?
I think the conditions are being set for Putin to be on his way out. I don't think it's going to be as quick as January, but there are certainly, Putin is now under an awful lot more pressure than he was beforehand. He doesn't know where to turn. We've seen the language. The language change. We've seen Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, come out and refer to the special military operation as a war now. We've seen Putin come out and make statements in public about how it's hurting Russia.
The impact. I mean, the impact of 1 million casualties returning, amputees, returning to the cities in Russia, and also the conscription. I mean, this is no longer just affecting people.
The majority
sticks.
of the million have died. That's the trouble, because their medical facilities are terrible. So it's a very small percentage that are coming back as amputees and everything else. But declaring it as war is setting the conditions for a constitutional mobilisation of troops from the rest of the country, and that would start to bring in people from Moscow and St. Petersburg. As soon as Putin does that, he's lost it.
I mean, the other problem he's got, Julia, is if he does get a peace in Ukraine, let's say we get a North Korea, South Korea situation.
So Russia keeps Crimea, but it's cut off.
And all the other provinces as well. They want Odessa, though. You've got 1 million people coming back into Russia who are under arms. So what are you going to do with
Lots
those?
of them, by the way, were violent criminals freed from prison in return for fighting on the front line.
So my forecast on that is he's going to project them into the Western Military District to face the Baltics, Sweden and Finland. He won't invade, but he'll put pressure on them for joining NATO to get them back. And I also think he'll flood them into Africa to resuscitate the Wagner Group and Russian influence there.
And Georgia.
Meanwhile, our current Prime Minister, outgoing, it has promised £15 billion uplift in defence spending, way below the £28 billion which we were told was the bare minimum needed to pretty much stand still to defend our country from defence chiefs and former defence secretaries, and one who even resigned. And now we find out in the last week that actually there isn't even any funding for it. And a good whack of that money is just frankly made up accountancy.
Creative accounting.
It's not real money. The incoming Prime Minister, as of the 20th of the month, is Andy Burnham, and he's pledged to rebuild the UK's hard power, he says, by ensuring that billions of pounds of additional defence spending is focused domestically rather than given to America or European companies. Well, that sounds great, because you could actually, rebuild an awful lot of our manufacturing with that. Much harder to do it when our costs are so high, with energy costs being 4 times higher than many of the other countries in the Western world, thanks to net zero. No urge to drop that. Do you trust that this new Prime Minister is going to take defence seriously when he's not talking about defence, not talking about benefit cuts, not talking about dropping net zero, and saying he's going to put this 15 billion into defence, when we all know it's not real money and it's not been accounted for, and it's not enough even if it was real?
Not one single party right now has a coherent, credible defence policy.
Does that include Reform, who you were going to stand for?
It certainly does include Reform. Nigel Farage is the defence spokesman, it seems, and they don't have a coherent defence policy. I can tell you that from the inside. The fact of life is, what we need to do now is stop talking about the money, stop talking about percentages of GDP, and say, what capabilities do we need to deter and defeat our enemies? And
then how much does that cost?
How much does it cost, and where do we take the risk if we can't afford it? That's what we do. That's how grown-ups do it.
Can we afford to not afford it?
We can't, no. The first duty of government, and what makes everything else possible, is a safe, secure and stable society. And that's what we need in the first place. We need to be as prickly as a porcupine as far as any potential enemy is concerned, and we need to go out there and protect our interests. I'm afraid muscular nationalism is back in vogue again, and right at the heart of that is strong armed forces. If we don't do that, nothing else will come from it. And I'm going to be very robust in conversations with politicians about the sort of capabilities that we need. Give an example, Julia. We've got to get our act together on the way we build things. The Type 26 frigate, which isn't even in the water operationally yet. Okay?
Ordered when?
1996.
I'm sorry.
30 years ago, a Chinese frigate.
Where have they hidden it?
No. Basically,
how many were there supposed to be?
Well, there's supposed to be 12 originally, but I'll tell you, Julia, they're going to be obsolete by the time they get operational, because the world has changed. We are in a situation now where we are building 20th century armed forces for a 21st century conflict with 19th century thinking. And that's what we need to start talking about. Say, what's the world going to be like? What political objectives do we want to achieve? And then we shunt the military objectives in behind that. That is a grown-up conversation which no party is having at the moment. Having said that, I heard Rupert Lowe talking in those terms the other day.
Oh, hello. So, they're not a major party. Rupert Lowe is not a possible potential future Prime Minister. It's really... No, this is the thing. It's really easy for people who are not realistic. It's like the Lib Dems. Oh, and the Green. Money for you, or money for you. If you've got no realistic chance of actually being in office, you can promise anything you want. Reform, however, do have a realistic chance of forming the next government, whether it's a coalition or not. You were standing for them. You're no longer a member of Reform?
No.
You left. There was a falling out. We won't go into the details of that. However, I want to know what your thoughts are on Nigel Farage resigning over, like he says the establishment stitch up and standing for by-election in his Clacton seat, where he's going to face Count Bimface and Lawrence Fox from Reclaim.
If I'd been giving advice to Nigel Farage, he never asked, I would have said, don't do this. The Emperor Augustus had a famous saying, you never go fishing with a golden hook, because you're going to lose the hook and the fish isn't worth it. And I'm afraid the Clacton by-election is exactly that. And I'm afraid...
They're now reform activists are now being told, forget the mayoralty vote in Manchester, which would be a major prize, go and campaign in Clacton, even though it's possibly likely they could be on the same day in August.
But I can tell you from my own experience of being a mayoral candidate, Reform doesn't give a toss about the mayoral elections. They don't believe in devolution. I had no support whatsoever, and all my support base is still there, so I may still run.
Well, there we are then. Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parris, CP, former Royal Navy Commander. What a fascinating interview. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Philip Ingram will stay with us. Up next, we're going to be talking about welfare Britain. Labour, according to the Tories, is in denial about the huge surge in the cost of disability benefits. This is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. Well, what an interesting interview that was. By the way, a lot of you have been getting in touch. I said, I don't know, about a week ago that I could tell a story about Keir Starmer, which one of the reasons why I really despise that man. I can tell it today. I promise I will. I haven't forgotten. 12:20. I may have bigged it up too much. I don't know. I'm just saying it tells you about the morals of the man. That's all I'm saying. There are little things that tell you about who someone is. And I think this does tell me who our current Prime Minister is. So I will tell that story in about half an hour's time, I promise you. Right now, though, let's get back to the issue of these disability payments. Disability payments and benefits this is PIP, personal independence payments, not means tested. They're for people who are in work or out of work. And if you get the maximum, it's 194 a week, but 10 grand a year extra for extra help that you may need living a normal life if you have a disability, mental or physical. They are not fit for purpose, though. Who said this? Well, this is Stephen Timms, the actual disability minister in this government, who's carried out a review. And in the interim review, he says they're not fit for purpose. Often the process for getting them is dehumanising. It's also a barrier to work. But extraordinarily, he doesn't seem to think that the fact that the cost of PIP, which is expected to rise to more than £41 billion by the end of this decade, and the fact that it has doubled to 4 million claimants in just the last 7 years, from 2019 to 26, most of that coming, of course, in the last few years since lockdown. He doesn't seem to think that that is an issue. He says, my view is that the current level of spending is not a great concern. What would be a concern would be if it carried on going up forevermore. Funnily enough, the Tories have said the government's in denial. I wonder what Maxwell Marlowe makes of it. He's the Director of Public Affairs at the Free Market think tank Adam Smith Institute. Good morning to you, Maxwell.
Good morning, Julia. Almost afternoon.
Almost after. I got told off the other day by saying good afternoon to Jacob Rees-Mogg after midday. He said he only says good afternoon after lunch. I don't know if that's an etiquette. I don't know what the rules are anymore. I thought it was a midday thing. Anyway, I get it wrong all the time. Maxwell, I mean, I have to say, disability benefits, not fit for purpose, tell us something we don't know. Did we need a review? But I thought what Stephen Timms said this morning on the BBC was absolutely shocking, that he doesn't think there's a problem right now.
It's completely mad, Julia. I mean, by the end of the decade, it's estimated we're going to be spending £43 billion, on these claimants, right? And you're right, it's doubled since 2019. It's going to carry on going up almost exponentially because it's just a free-flowing pot of money. And now there are 4 million adults in the UK who are happy to, or in England and Wales at least, who are happy to claim onto this. The word's already spreading. You can really sign on and do quite well out of it, to be honest.
And you're a mug if you don't.
I know, I feel like a mug. I mean, it used to be Motability, of course, and those new reforms that the Adam Smith Institute was campaigning so hard to fix, so that you couldn't get a luxury car every 3 years at the behest of, hardworking taxpayers. That, really is, it really is a huge thing. But you're right entirely. This is cowardice, I think, from the Department of Work and Pensions. They're not willing to make the cuts. And fundamentally, we've got the man coming down from the north of England who says he's going to be governing differently. His Labour MPs, I think, are going to disagree with him. There's no way we'll see cuts under this Labour government.
Well, he says he doesn't even want a whipping system where basically MPs are told, if you're an MP for Labour or whichever party is in government, you're voting for this and that's the end of the matter. He says it's going to be more like an HR department. I mean, you can't run the country by committee. That's not how life works. But this is extraordinary. It's the fact that no one in Labour seems to think there's actually an issue, perhaps with the honourable exception of Pat McFadden, the current Work and Pensions Secretary, who, of course, is in those messages with Peter Mandelson that were leaked, basically said, every time I see a Labour MP, they want to know who could we tax more and who could we get to give more benefits to people. The weird thing is that these people think they're being nice to do this. But this is because we never have a sensible debate about this, because the moment you talk about cutting benefits, and I don't think you should cut the amount that someone who needs it. I keep saying this. Earlier in the show, we had a call of Vivian, and she has ME. She needed to have a lift put in her home. Couldn't get into her bedroom otherwise. She needed to have a car that she could get a wheelchair in. Well, you can't buy those cheaply. They cost money. She needed extra money for that she and her, didn't have. And of course, as a civilised society, we should pay for that. But so you have a debate. You have a debate about we shouldn't be having a load of 23-year-olds claiming they've got anxiety, getting this money, getting a penny, or frankly even being allowed to claim benefits, in my view. And then suddenly the BBC they'd be interviewing Vivian, going, "Isn't it awful? Isn't it awful you're going to lose your benefits?" No one's talking about taking them away from Vivian.
Exactly. It's completely mad. I saw in the news the other day, people with ADHD, being allowed not to look for work. It's insulting, fundamentally. I mean, I also run a consultancy. My co-founder's got quite severe ADHD. He's one of the hardest working, most talented people I know. It's insulting to him, the largesse of the state.
Yeah,
it's
but
mad.
Also ADHD allowing people to get basically contribution towards a car. I don't want people. If your ADHD is so bad that you can't get a job, I really don't want you behind the wheel of a large metal box.
I completely agree. But also, let's not forget here, Julia, when Motability was at its worst, fundamentally, they were giving Motability cards to people who had drinking problems, alcoholics, people with drug dependency. It was completely out of control. And now we see this for the PIP system. It's getting to the point of complete absurdity.
Yeah.
And, I really do hope someone in the Labour Party, in the civil service, is shaking the Treasury down and trying to get an ounce of sense out of them before my tax bill goes up any further.
Exactly. I think it's not just about the economics of it, because at some point, we are simply just going to be one big benefit claimant with an island attached. It is also about the immorality of the people doing this. A lot of people, there'll be people who've convinced themselves, because young people in particular, and this is happening mostly with young people, are being told at school, on YouTube all day, every day, that tell us about your problems and your incapacity and your disability, because that's the most interesting and most important thing about you. Well, that's not necessarily helpful for them. But but there are a lot of people who are just swinging the lead and they're playing the system. They're asking AI, what do I have to say? What are the keywords I have to say? And this has all been well publicised. They know what they have to say and they get the money. They think everyone else who's working is a mug, who's getting it and not going to work and not getting it is a mug. But it's also immoral for any political party to write people off like this and give them this option, because we know pretty much whatever your ailment is, physical or mental, if you can work is good for you.
Exactly. And Helen Whately, the shadow Work and Pension Secretary, has said this morning. There is a moral rot at the heart of some of the people who are doing this. They're essentially stealing from you, from me, from your listeners, Julia. It's a complete disgrace. And I agree entirely. What does it say about our governing class, our political class, that's how they view some of the people in this nation? That they're completely written off. There's no hope for you. You just need to live on the dole for the rest of time, and that's just you done. I think it is a complete disgrace on our moral fabric. I'm thinking back to the Victorians in the 1800s. How did they view the nation of strong, industrious, hard-working people who went around to craft the world? We seem to have completely forgotten those really brilliant ideals, and we're now stuck on this sort of indolent welfare statism.
And there is somewhere in between making sure that people who need it get that money, and there being no shame, absolutely not, attached to it, and that people who don't need it don't get a penny. But at the end of the day, there are far too many people in government, and I think the Tories did this as well for years. They failed to tackle it. I mean, Ian Duncan-Smith valiantly did his effort as Work and Pension Secretary for years, cutting down the number of workless families, but basically just putting everyone on the payroll.
Yeah, fundamentally. I mean, look, universal credit it was a great, it was a remarkable thing. I remember giving evidence to Work and Pension Select Committee in Parliament, and I did say to the committee, I said, if it weren't for universal credit, the entire welfare system would have fallen over during the pandemic. So Ian Duncan-Smith did a great job there.
Massively
but it still
slagged
needs
off
further
by
reform.
Labour at the time, and then when they got it, didn't want to change a thing.
Of course not. No, I mean, look, let's look at this. 1 in 6 people on PIP are still in work, and maybe those are the people we should be concentrating on the most, because I assume these are quite hardworking people who, just like your caller earlier, who are suffering from really severe ailments, do need that support to get to work. Let's look at the 5 out of 6. What are they doing? Why aren't they in work? Why are they getting this
And
support?
also the fact that actually most people who apply are in work, but they give up work once they're on it. And it's supposed to be a way of enabling you to work. So it's doing the exact opposite. But apparently the Disability Minister doesn't think there's a problem. If he doesn't think there's a problem, we have a bigger problem there. Maxwell Marlowe, thank you very much. Voice of Reason there, Director of Public Affairs at the Adam Smith Institute. Lots more to come, including I'm going to tell you exactly why I have absolute disdain and contempt for the current Prime Minister. We're going to be talking to Reform's Layla Cunningham. Does Nigel Farage have egg on his face? That's up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Sorry, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and this is Talk, the home of common sense. It's 2 minutes past 12. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, as always, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up, we're going to be discussing with reforms at Leila Cunningham whether or not Nigel Farage has got egg on his face by calling this Clacton by-election, and why have activists in the mayoralty election in Manchester being told head over to Clacton to support Nigel Farage rather than fighting the very likely possibility of winning the whole of Manchester, Greater Manchester mayoralty for reform. We'll talk about that. Plus, we're going to be talking more about those disability benefits, PIP, that the system is not fit for purpose, says the Disability Minister. But apparently it doesn't. There's a problem with the number of claimants now, even though it's doubled since 2019. Plus, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, says now, by the way, a week after we were saying it on the show only last week, she wants to change the law and will change the law as of Monday to set so they can be deporting the Pakistan-born ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang. That's Shabir Ahmed, who was released from prison after just 14 years. The man didn't even serve 6 months for every single one of the rapes of 12, 13 and 14-year-old girls. That's how disgustingly inappropriate our judicial system is. But even if she did have the right to change the law, well, she's got the right to change the law, but even if she did have the ability to remove him, Pakistan won't accept him. So what happens next? Plus, we are going to be talking a bit more sport. Not only do we have the prospect of another set of World Cup clashes starting tonight, and of course England playing on Saturday night, but if we did get to the World Cup, we'll have to face the absolute horror of a sort of Super Bowl style halftime celebrations and performances, likes of Coldplay, Madonna, apparently still alive, and Justin Bieber. But we're also, though, getting the possibility, if we did win, we would get a bank holiday, apparently, according to the Prime Minister. But also, in other sports, yes, they do exist, British tennis wildcard Arthur Ferry has stormed his way into the Wimbledon semi-finals. We found a sport that Philip Ingram wants to talk about. And Philip Ingram does still join me, former senior military intelligence officer, afternoon to you.
Oh, Wimbledon.
You excited about that? He's amazing. I mean, this guy is amazing.
Absolutely amazing. You know, there's been some...
There's been a lot of sport on the telly.
There has been a lot of sport on the telly, but Wimbledon's fantastic, and I've had the opportunity to go and sit in centre court in the past and watch it live, and oh my goodness, is it captivating. I've gone to Wimbledon about 3 or 4 times, and even the worst seats at the back are still brilliant seats. Yeah. It's just, I mean, absolutely superb. It really is. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. We talked a lot about Nigel Farage. We've asked you to get in touch if you want to get in touch about Nigel Farage. Has he got egg on his face? If he only ends up facing Count Bidface? Rachel Reeves, of all people, Miss I've lost my abacus. It's been broken all this time, so no one cares anyway. About to lose my job, Rachel Reeves. Even she was able to have a pop at Nigel Farage yesterday, saying, as she moves the writ or whatever she was doing, whatever, there's always parliamentary terminology, so that he could formally resign as an MP, and they could actually stop the process of by-election happening in Clacton. But she was able to say, well, if he wants to spend his summer, fighting a bin, it's up to him. Has he got egg on his face? Love to hear your thoughts on that. Also, your thoughts on disability benefits. PIP, not fit for purpose, but apparently not an issue that it's doubled in the last few years. Give us a call. Either of those stories. Anything else you want to have a say about, give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text us on 87222. You can also get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls to charge the national rate, and text cost 1 standard network rate message. Well, I'm delighted to say we are joined by Leila Cunningham right now. She is Reform UK's London mayoral candidate. That's for 2028, and she joins us right now. Good afternoon, Leila.
Hi, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Look, I mean, a lot of mocking of Nigel Farage. I mean, it was a barnstorming address that he gave, that 20-minute speech on Tuesday. And I was going, oh, he's coming out fighting, accusing the media of a stitch-up, establishment stitch-up, resigning to basically, explaining why he needed money, talk about his security threats, saying, I'm resigning to fight my seat. It's going to be the people versus the establishment. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Nigel Farage versus Count Binface, Monster Raving Loony Party, and Lawrence Fox from Reclaim. Has he got egg on his face?
Not at all. I think it's if ever you've seen how the political class is ganging up against Nigel. This is the prime example. They closed ranks within 24 hours, went to speak to the Speaker, and they all, I mean, if there's any example of how they all gang up against him, not to stand in a by-election, and you know very well as I do that if they thought any chance of beating him at the ballot box, they would have stood someone.
I completely agree with you on that, but they don't have to gang up on it. They can just individually decide we don't want to play. I mean, the Tories know they do badly. They'd be silly to stand on that basis. You can argue that, and as Nigel Farage has argued, that they're being contemptuous of the electorate by not giving them the option of standing. And in fact, it is interesting how often the other people like Kemi Badenoch, when he's been told, well, maybe you should stand down in Makerfield, so give Reform a better chance. No, we want to give an option to our voters to vote for us, not feeling that way in Clacton. But is that them running scared of being contemptuous? Or if they don't play, they literally just don't play his game, then his tactic doesn't work?
It's not a game, it's democracy. There are two questions that want to be... Did Nigel break the rules? And that's something for the parliamentary standards. The other question is, Nigel going to his electorate, and there's nothing illegitimate about going to your constituents and saying, you've heard everything that's been said about me. Do you still want me to be an MP? And we don't accept the premise that the voters have to wait permission from Parliament to call an election. He's gone to the voters first and he's asked them, what do you think?
No, but he's saying, OK, if the argument is you've heard everything, well, they haven't heard everything because we haven't got the evidence. No, I mean, I follow this stuff quite closely, Layla, and I haven't heard everything, so I'd be very surprised if your average voter in Clacton has.
How do you know you haven't heard everything? You're assuming there's more to come.
Because we don't have the outcome of that investigation in Parliament.
But the outcome is a separate process, and that will come.
The outcome will give us a lot of information. There'll be a report, and will tell us.
It will just be like if he's suspended or not. It will be if he broke parliamentary rules.
No, because it will outline how he voted, how he broke the rules, or how he didn't break the rules. So there is an independent body that decides this. This is a body that has ruled against Tory MPs and Labour MPs, cabinet ministers, even prime ministers. Are
there Reform MPs, Julia, on there?
There are not Reform MPs on there. But does that...
OK, so you've seen how Labour and Conservatives are anything but independent. They've ganged up together to cancel elections 2 years in a row.
They didn't gang up together. They just did the same thing. That's not the same thing.
Well,
I'm sorry, but Tory MPs on that committee have condemned other Tory MPs and even a Tory Prime Minister in the recent past.
So what we heard was that investigation was going to be a protracted process.
Which it shouldn't be. These are ridiculously long investigations, yeah.
Well, no, some are longer than others, and it was going to be protracted, and Nigel was going to keep suffering a massive invasion to his privacy. You saw how they went to his daughter's house, and he said, you know what? You're not the judge of him. The political class isn't the judge of him. Journalists aren't. The only accountability that counts in a democracy is the accountability of the people.
That is not true. That is not true. Okay. The courts also get to have a say if there were any wrongdoing, and no one is alleging, I believe seriously at this time, that there has been against Nigel Farage. However, I would say, if I were a voter in Clacton, I'd like to know the outcome of this. One of the reasons why we have recall petitions, if someone is suspended for a serious time, if it's serious enough, a breach of the parliamentary rules, I'd like to know if the judgment is that he's broken the rules or not. And then the people of Clacton are perfectly right to say, well, you know what, we don't care. We still think he should be our MP, or we want him to be the next Prime Minister. And they would be absolutely entitled to do that. But nevertheless, we have a system, the Register of Members' Interest, and by the way, not just MPs. If you're a journalist with a lobby pass in the House of Commons, you also have to register any money that you receive over certain sums, who is paying you, who funds you, so everyone knows whether or not you have perhaps got any reason to be saying or writing certain things because you're being funded by that. That's why we have MPs declare stuff. His argument has been this was personal money. It had nothing to do with his job in Parliament, and same with George Cottrell and the help that he was getting, and therefore it was totally irrelevant. The rules say if it's within a year of you coming into Parliament, then you should declare it if it's not completely purely personal. A lot of people like me, I'm not establishment. I've not got an axe to grind against your party. I've not got an axe to grind certainly against Nigel Farage. I still think there are questions to be asked about what the hell is a Thai crypto billionaire, British born but living in Thailand? Why is he giving Nigel Farage 5 million quid? And how do we know it's only personal? That's a legitimate question to be asked.
Well, it was a personal matter. Nigel has said it was a personal matter.
So
He
it
was
must
not
be.
an elected MP. Hang on, you've asked me a question. A general election had not been called.
Yes.
When that money was
And
given.
he had no plans
So
at
there
that
was
time
no
to return to office.
Hang on. There was no prospect at the time the money was given that Nigel would be running for an MP. So it's hard to fathom how it had any involvement with him being an MP, and that is Nigel's position.
Why didn't he just declare it anyway?
And he's sure that he hasn't broken the rules. Now, you might not accept that. Other journalists might not accept that. Nigel wants to see if the people of Clacton accept that or not. It's as simple as
We've
that.
had a lot of calls. We've got a lot of reform supporters who are listening to this show, and a lot of reform members as well. But even some of the people who say, "Look, I'm a reform supporter," or I was even going to be standing. I wanted to stand stand for reform. That they'll say, but I don't think he should. I think A, he should have. If he'd accepted the money, he should have declared it. And B, I think he should have accepted the money in the first place. I know an awful lot of people in reform. I'm getting calls and messages from people who are very concerned and think this is a major mess up. That's not the language they use, rather stronger language, by Nigel Farage.
I don't get any. The only messages I get is that we're fully behind Nigel and it's the fight of our lives. So I don't know who you're speaking to, Julia, but
is this the hill to die on? The right to take 5 million quid from crypto billionaires and hang out with a convicted fraudster?
The hill to die on is that politicians, the final say in a democracy are the voters.
Absolutely.
And that's it. And that is the hill to die on. And I find it remarkable that the other parties who base all their public discourse, their speeches, their conferences, their appearance in Parliament, how bad Nigel is, how indefensible he is, how he's the worst thing to happen in politics. They have one chance to prove their point to the electorate, and they bottle it. And they're going to say it's for this, it's for that. You know as well as I do that if they thought they had any chance of beating him, it's their one chance to prove their point, they would have fielded someone. And now they're all colluding and saying, "Oh, we want to ridicule him." Imagine being someone in Clacton and thinking, "Wow, none of the parties think it's worth giving us a choice. They instead want to ridicule us with a bid."
Well, yeah, they're not standing count bin face. I think that's certainly a way to look at it. What changes? Okay, so we have this by-election. Let's say it's held on the 6th of August, as Reform said they want. Which will be the same day as the Manchester mayoral election. We've got, internal WhatsApp messages basically calling on party activists to go and campaign for Nigel Farage instead of Manchester. We've got a really good chance of winning the Greater Manchester mayoralty. I mean, crazy to actually jeopardise that, I would suggest. But what changes? Nigel Farage wins, let's say. They don't have a big count. We don't have Count Binface sitting in Parliament being told to wear a tie. Nigel Farage wins. The parliamentary investigation starts again, as it will. What changes then? What does he prove at that point?
So I'll tell you what. So there are two questions that need answered, as I said before. One is, did he break the rules? And that parliamentary standard thing, it will come out. We're not stopping the investigation. Once he's elected again, it will go ahead. And Parliament will deal with it. Nigel will deal with it. The other question is, Nigel's gone to his... And there's nothing illegitimate about going to your constituents and saying everything you've heard about me, and there is a lot. Do you still want me to be your MP? It's what we call democratic accountability.
Yeah, but what changes?
And it's something Labour and Conservatives have tried to run away from. This May, last May, Andy Burnham's not going to call a general election. Kemi, remarkably, as leader of the opposition, is not going to call for a general election. We only seek a mandate from the people.
Okay. By the way, Reform aren't seriously calling for a general election.
Yes, we are seriously calling for a general election.
You guys are not ready for you haven't even got candidates vetted.
What we're calling for, Julia. Of course we are calling for a general election. Bring it on.
Not seriously, you're not.
100%.
You know perfectly well your party isn't. Your party is not remotely. You don't even have spokespeople on some of the key subjects like defence.
Do you think it only comes down to spokespeople? Do you think seriously?
I don't think it only comes. I think having candidates in place who are vetted.
Nigel's the best person to speak on defence.
Is he?
Yeah, he is.
Okay. What's your defence policy?
I'm not going to go through the defence policy here right now. I'm not the defence.
Because the party doesn't have an official defence policy, has it?
What's the defence policy of Labour? To underspend, underfund, and keep us unsafe at the borders?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Terrifying.
So I can guarantee
what's
that
the
it won't
reform
be
defence
that.
policy?
You know what our defence policy is? To enact the first duty of government, and that is to keep this country safe by all means.
And that is
our
tens
defence
of billions of pounds. And where's that money coming from?
Well, that starts with controlling the borders.
Mm-hmm. That's a good start. Yeah, you want to get rid of net zero.
Julia, I'm not going to go through. It's not a gotcha moment that you're trying to catch me out.
It's not a gotcha.
I can't list our defence policy.
You just said you're ready for a general election. I'm saying your party doesn't have a defence policy.
No, you said my party doesn't have a defence spokesperson.
Okay, or a policy. But I'm just saying you don't have people in place who are not. You've got a bunch of policies.
How do you know what's happening in the policy team? We have a huge policy team that's working very, very hard. And when it comes,
you don't have a public policy that we are aware of. Listen, we talk about any new announcement from reform. We talk about it on the show, and often we're singing its praise again. Yeah, I've said, immigration policy, this policy. I'll sign up and come and help enact that policy. We are not sitting here. We're not sitting here slagging off reforms. I'm just saying the reality is reform is a bit on the ropes. They put themselves. This is of Nigel Farage's own doing.
No, we don't feel on the ropes at all.
Okay.
We feel that we're more than ready. We've topped the polls. We're still topping the polls, despite what everyone's saying, Nigel. We topped the polls today. We topped the polls yesterday. We've topped the last 300 polls. We are not on the ropes.
Okay. Finally, I want to ask you a big case. We were talking about this on the show an awful lot last week. This absolutely hideous excuse for a human being, Shabir Ahmed, the leader of a Pakistani grooming gang in Rochdale, one of the many, who bizarrely was only sentenced to 22 years, less than 6 months for each of the child sex rapes he committed in his time. And those are just the tip of the iceberg. It would have been thousands. He served less than that because he only served 14 years. He was out of prison last Thursday. Now, he had his British citizenship taken away from him. He was born in Pakistan. He's renounced his Pakistan citizenship, came here as a child. Ridiculous, absurd loophole in the Immigration Act of 1971 means that because he arrived in the 60s and been here for more than 5 years, he's allowed to stay in the country. Shabana Mahmood has... it took us about 3 hours on Thursday to come up with, change the law so that you can get rid of him, get rid of that loophole. They said they're going to do that, and as of Monday, they're going to enact that. Trouble is, Pakistan say they don't want to take him back. He's our problem. What would you do about that?
Cut all aid to Pakistan and all visas from Pakistan. It's a simple matter. You don't want to take one of your own. We're not one of your disgusting own. No one from your country enters our country. I wrote an article about it in the Express 6 months ago.
Yeah. Simple. It's simple, easy to do.
We're not a dumping ground for all your paedophile criminals. I'm sorry.
I have to say, couldn't agree more on that one. I'm glad we've ended on a note of agreement.
There we go.
There you go. We do. Layla Cunningham, really appreciate you joining us. Reform UK's mayoral candidate for London in 2028. Philip Ingram, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a danger with reform and looking at the polls at the moment, because pollsters are talking to people. People are now going from anyone but the Tories are now going to anyone but Labour and the Tories, and that's why reform is going there. They're going to need to start to build it out with some actual policies and some actual substance if they're going to have a credible government. Because if they get in on the because everyone else is bad ticket, we've won. Then they're going to fall at the same hurdles that Labour's fallen at, that the Tories are suffering, and everything else at the moment. We need some substance.
Yeah, we really do. We really do. 12:20 is the time. I'd love to hear your response to all of that. Do get in touch at 0344 499 1000. Up next, going to take a quick break. And then I said I was going to do this last week because I know that I can now tell this story. I've got permission, finally, to tell this story. And this is about Keir Starmer. And it's basically why I know that he is not the man he claims to be and why I have nothing but contempt for him. I'm not trying to big up. I just think there are little things that tell you about who someone is, and I think this tells you who he is. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. We'll get to your calls in just a few moments. Now, I mentioned a week ago that it's not possible to hate Keir Starmer enough. And a lot of people think, oh, yes, those are strong words for this man. But I think there are sometimes that people do things and it tells you who they are. And I see this particularly as someone who's waitressed a lot and as somebody I worked as a receptionist, a lot of work sort of during uni and post-uni. And I have to say it's an awful lot of people who, talk down to people who they, for some reason, think are beneath them. And not a fan of that. Don't think anyone's above me. Don't think anyone's beneath me. And I think anyone who's done any of those service industry jobs will know exactly who those people are. And I've had a lot of people say you can really tell the cut of who someone is by how they behave with people who are no use to them, don't have power, can never help them, but just, showing basic courtesy and respect. Well, I want to talk to you about Keir Starmer because I discovered back in 2020, when we were during our first lockdown, or actually soon just after the first lockdown, that Keir Starmer had the same cleaner as me. She'd been working for me, freelance cleaner, for many years, and she'd started working for him a year earlier. Cash in hand, because she was in charge of her own money, her own payments to the taxman, the normal system that most people use. She came through the agency. It was how I'd got to know her, and that was how the system for payment. He, though, didn't pay her during lockdown. So you'll remember back in 2020 when he was the new Labour leader and he was talking about how terrible it was that all these people weren't able to go to work, banned from going to work, how it was terrible and they were not getting help and how awful that was and how people should be, looked after. And while he was saying that, expressing all this concern, he wasn't paying his own cleaner. His wife sent a text message to their cleaner of a year saying, you can't come, we're not allowed to come to clean our home. I saw the messages. You're not allowed to come to clean our home, but we will pay you anyway. We'll make sure you get paid. They didn't pay her. No money was forthcoming. Weeks went by. Their cleaner got in touch repeatedly, said, I can come back to work. No, you're not allowed to come back to work. But you said you would pay me. No replies to any messages until there was a reply saying, but you can just claim furlough money. You'll be able to get that money that way, even though they had been paying her in cash. Never got in contact again, never sent a message to find out how she was, and never paid her a penny, even though she had messages in which she was told, we will pay you. I know this is true because I know the woman herself, but I also know this is true because a couple of years ago, I confronted Keir Starmer about this, and I said, I discovered the most random thing. You and I had the same cleaner. He went, really? And I said her name. He went, oh, yes, I remember her, a really nice lady. I went, yeah. I said, you didn't pay her during lockdown, why not? I paid her because I knew she couldn't work. I knew she was on low income, and I paid her. Other people I know who employed her paid her because it's kind of the right thing to do, isn't it? He, having called for lockdown, didn't pay her. He looked a bit embarrassed. Of course, his aides quickly sort of came in. It was a social event, And I said, no, you didn't pay her. Your wife said she would pay her. And he goes, oh, I don't know anything about that. And I said, well, who was ironing your shirts then? He was on television a lot of the time. He, wearing smart shirts. Was Vic ironing his shirts? Was he ironing his shirts? Did he at any point say, what's happened to our cleaner? Is she not coming anymore? Is she still being paid? Because I'm giving all these speeches, making all these statements about how terrible it is that these poor people who are not getting, able to go to work are basically not having any money, are we making sure that she's okay? Well, the answer came there, none. He looked a bit sheepish, looked a bit embarrassed, and got ushered off to talk to other people. So if you want to know why I really despise Keir Starmer, it's because that's the person he is. That is the person he is. Someone who was in his home, who he had fond memories of, interestingly. She certainly has always spoken very nicely about him and his family. Very nice man, she said. She could have earned, I've got to be honest with you, probably a good 5-figure sum, which is a lot of money for anyone, let alone someone working as a cleaner, for selling that story to, any of the national newspapers that he was this hypocrite Labour leader who didn't pay his cleaner during lockdown, having basically, called for people to look after people during lockdown. And she didn't, because she's a nice person and is loyal and doesn't do things like that. However, she has now given up work in this country and has left the country and gave me permission to tell that story, which I have not told publicly. And it's a little story. It's not, there's no criminality. There's no sort of, evil doings. But I think it tells you who Keir Starmer is. I think it tells you who his wife is. I think it tells you about them, that these are people that talk the talk, but in their own home lives, in their own real lives, when they can actually help people who are less fortunate than them and don't have, I don't know, massive big salaries and hire an Act of Parliament to protect the pension, that actually, when, the proverbial hits the fan and someone on low income is unable to work to earn a living, they'll make a promise to pay her and then not ever pay any money and not even reply to a text message begging for help. I think that tells you who they are. And that is among the main reasons I have nothing but contempt for Keir Starmer. Philip Ingram, your thoughts on that?
I'm shocked. And while he was not paying the cleaner, he was taking backhanders from Lord Ali and
for his free suits,
for his free suits and everything else. So it's even worse. He will scrounge money off other people. He's a multi-millionaire in his own right. Because of what he's done. I don't know how he's managed to do that on his MP salary.
But she's got more morals than him, because she literally said, no. And I said, seriously, I can get you money for... I mean, this is easily a front-page story, because there was so much talk about how people were behaving at the time. And she went, no, I couldn't do that. Because she's a really honourable person.
This needs to be on the front page, because Starmer, I don't like him anyway.
But it tells you who he is.
It does.
It tells you who he is. That's all I'm saying.
And there's a lot more out there that... is not in the public domain.
Also, by the way, she said his house was very scruffy. I was quite amused by. But you know what posh lefties are like? Scruffy houses. Anyway, Steve is in Essex. He's on the phone line, 0344 499 1000, wants to talk about Nigel Farage. So, Steve, if you want to give your tuppence worth on that little story, that little anecdote, do feel free as well.
Hi, Julie. Great show, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm not surprised. If Keir Starmer told me my date of birth, I'd be checking my birth certificate. I wouldn't trust that man as far as I could throw him, which was probably not very far. I think he's a despicable man. I always have done. When he became Labour leader, I thought that.
Oh,
so
really? I didn't think that then.
Me.
But no, I thought it was despicable because he didn't basically respect democracy. I mean, he's not a Democrat. We know that.
Well, that's it during the whole Brexit
battles.
Debate.
Yeah.
I mean, to say they're Democrats, but we didn't like the result of that one, so let's do it again till we get the right result.
Patronising.
Which brings me on to the Clacton by-election, because with Farage, I'm a member of Reform, and I support Farage. Regarding the 5 million quid, I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
And I think most people that support Farage will tell you the same thing. I'm sure there's some people that do have questions about it. The majority of Farage supporters or Reform supporters couldn't care less.
This is going to shore up his support.
Yeah, in fact, exactly. Now, what they've done, the only people that care about it is the media and the opposition parties, who will do anything to stop.
No, that's not true. Again, I have no extragram reform. I'm very supportive of reform, and I care about it.
But you are media, as I said. It's media and people who don't like Farage.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Now, again, you have to question the timing on this, because this question on the 5 million has been around for a while.
Why now all this pile-on? Is it anything to do with the fact we have a prime minister that's just being parachuted in, that has no mandate, that has no policies, and more importantly, no scrutiny from the media whatsoever?
Do you think this is being convenient? But couldn't they just give him some scrutiny then? I mean, if he's nailed on anyway, why not give him... He's going to get it eventually just from the voters.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, that's the voters, you see. But the media, who think they're all powerful, aren't also asking him any questions. They're not doing anything.
Really not. I mean, again, that Andrew Marr interview on LBC was a joke.
I know. I mean, this is the thing. You look at it and you shake your head. I mean, it's the same thing. What I say with this Clacton by-election, I mean, the fact that they've treated the voters in Clacton with utter contempt because they're refusing to stand, trying to make Farage look stupid, but they're showing exactly what they are. They're cowards because they know that they will be trounced. Now, assuming Farage will win again, which I'm sure he will, then you'll go to the committee, which is heavily loaded with Labour and Conservative MPs. So you're pretty sure he's going to be found guilty.
No, they have found other MPs of their own parties guilty before.
Yeah, I agree, but I mean, I'm sorry, but such is the fear of Farage that I think they're looking at anything to any way they can to stop him. The same way as the Americans tried it with Trump.
Yes.
The same with the French are doing it with Marine Le Pen. The Australians are doing it now with Pauline Hanson. Exactly same thing. It's the establishment playbook. Now, if they find him guilty and the voters of the Clacton get the 10% to have another election, how many times are we going to do this? Ask the people in Clacton to vote until they get the right
So this
result?
kind of avoids the second by-election. I mean, it may well be, maybe prove to be a great tactic. Again, he's a very clever man. He rarely gets these things wrong. But by all accounts, he said in interviews, he didn't think they wouldn't stand. So he may have tactically misfired on this. He could still make a win of this. I get that. But we shall see. Steve, great call. Great to hear from you. Thank you very much, Dee. Caroline is in London. Caroline, you want to have your say on this as well?
Yeah, hi, Julia. I totally agree with what this guy just said. I was going to call up about the timing of this. Now, I love you to bits. I agree with you 99% of the time. But on this, I'm not quite sure. Now, Nigel did make mistakes. Yes, he did. 100%. But it is one rule for him. It is an establishment stitch-up. How many people on the Labour front bench are multi-millionaires, Julia? And how have they got there? With their MP salary. No one's been scrutinised.
Okay, most of them aren't multi-millionaires and people have done other jobs before they were MPs.
Well, OK, I'm going to beg to differ. But the thing is, this is becoming beyond a laughing stock, and it's not a joke. We are in such deep waters here. Our country is basically over as it stands at the moment. We've got Burnham coming in, no scrutiny. How he got in is absolutely disgusting. This was probably planned for months and months. We have no idea what he's going to do, but I'll tell you something, millions and millions of people in this country are going to lose their homes because he's going to bring tax in for the council tax or land tax. We are in such deep trouble. We've still got the Muslim Brotherhood here who are in bed with everyone. Keir Starmer, the lot of them. We are the most corrupt country in the Western world.
We're not. No, we're not. We're just not. One of the reasons why I feel very strongly about that 5 million quid is we're not a corrupt country, actually, compared to most other countries.
Well, we are definitely a country of money laundering. That's gone through history.
Well, London bankers. I mean, the London banking system's directly funded by that. Caroline, great call. I understand you feel very strongly. Hey, look, we're friends. We're allowed to differ on that. We don't have to agree on everything. That's what we managed to do here. Great call. Thank you, Caroline. Quick thoughts from Philip Ingram?
Yeah, I still think it doesn't pass the smell test. That's the problem. The money coming in, him not declaring it. He needs to be more open about it. And I think he's tried a simple tactic to try and bully the other parties. But then I do think the other parties are being unfair and they're ganging up together to try and attack him in a way where they're putting him under level scrutiny, that they're denying...
completely.
They're
definitely different rules for different parties. There's no doubt at all for me that there is an establishment attempt to, basically, he is too big a threat to, and they often do look like the Uni Party. I completely get that.
But he's giving them ammunition.
But he shouldn't give them ammunition. Exactly. Right. Coming up, we are going to be talking to the brilliant Rafe Haydor-Mancu about lots of big other stories in the news. First up, though, the 2026 World Cup is in full swing. It really is. And here at Talk, we are celebrating in style. That's why we're giving you the chance to win massive £26,000 in tax-free cash for a summer that you will not forget. Here's how to enter.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 83338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1 PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Rafe Haydel-Menk, who joins us now. He's a senior fellow at the New Culture Forum. Lots of different stories to talk to him about. Very good afternoon to you.
Always a pleasure, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. Right, let's get straight to it then. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, has discovered what we all knew exactly a week ago, that she can change the law so we can deport that Shabir Ahmed, the leader of the Rochdale grooming gang, who has come out of prison after just 14 years, outrageously, and is now living near where his victims are, and he's renounced his Pakistani nationality, brought here as a boy. We've taken away his British citizenship. Apparently they're going to change the law so they can deport him, but that doesn't mean he's going, does it?
No, it doesn't. But what really annoys me with all of this, of course, is that it takes something like the rape gangs for us to talk about this issue, which has been around since 1971. He's not the first person for whom this has been an issue. No. There have been others. There have been other people involved with the rape gangs to whom this has applied to, but there have been other instances of people from the Caribbean who couldn't be deported. Why do we act so late? You know, the Tories were in power. No one does anything until it becomes a national scandal. It's as if there's no foresight to think that anything like this may happen.
Yeah.
Of course, now, look, Pakistan, there are questions as to whether he did actually revoke his Pakistani nationality. There's a debate about whether he still is Pakistani or not. Legally, under international law, a country cannot stop one of its citizens coming back into that country. But Pakistan, of course, is saying, well, he's no longer a citizen. We don't have a passport.
He came here as a child. He's your problem. You created the rapist, basically.
Exactly. But we now need to start talking tough to Pakistan and saying, look, you know, visas, you require visas to come here a lot more than we require anything to go to your country.
Yep.
We will deny visas to everyone. All of your Pakistani political leaders, they've got property investments in the UK. There'll be sanctions here. We're still giving £50 million, amazingly, in aid to Pakistan.
Yeah, what's that about?
That will be cut off. And now I hear from some people in Labour that they're saying, oh, no, we shan't do that. We should say that we'll invest more money in Pakistan if they take the guy back.
Bribe. I mean, genuinely mad. Do you believe for a moment, I mean, again, they think the fact that it's taken the Home Office a week, I mean, this is, you know, various Zoom calls and everyone working from home while they're walking the dog to actually come up with the idea we can change the law. I mean, Tories published something at the beginning of the week. We had a caller on Thursday afternoon, yesterday, when we knew he was out, telling us, You can change the law, and I wrote about it in The Sun on Friday. About they had an emergency, Commons call and recall for a Saturday to save British Steel, but apparently saving British girls from mass rape. The idea, this guy's 73. He's still a threat to young girls on the streets of Rochdale. Apparently he's utterly unrepentant. I mean, he genuinely thinks that white working class girls are there to be raped. I mean, it's not even up for discussion that he should even be on the streets. That's the first problem. He should be coming out in a box, coffin-shaped box, obviously, from prison, and no other way. But, I mean, I don't believe for a nanosecond he's actually going to be sent back to Pakistan. Do you?
No. Well, if we do get a government in place that's willing to actually talk tough to the Pakistanis, then yes. I mean, other countries have no problem defending their national interest and prioritising the safety of their own citizens over predators like this. And so it's about time that, we are one of the world's top 5 economies. It's time we started to flex some muscle. I don't know why we always act as if we're incapable and impotent.
No, indeed. Well, apparently the Pakistanis have been saying we're acting in a rather colonial way, saying you must take this guy back. Like, no, this should be a bare minimum. We've taken back, an Australian, a British man who went off and was raping Australia. We had to take him back. Them's the rules. It's also one of the rules why I think that fundamentally we need to take Shamima Begum back so she's not a problem for other people, but only if she can be behind bars for the rest of her life. But there we are.
But there's another point I just wanted to make here, because he can't go back because he's a Commonwealth citizen, and the Immigration Act says you can't deport Commonwealth citizens who've lived here for so long. There's another thing I've been talking about for years. Commonwealth citizens living here can vote in our elections. And there are now so many.
But we can't vote in theirs.
Yes, but because of the Boris wave, you can now actually shift entire general elections on the basis of the people from, Nigeria, India, Pakistan. Those are 3 of the biggest migrant groups here. They can swing elections. Why is no one talking about the fact that someone who's here on a student visa can actually shift an election? And when you know that, the majority of them vote for left-wing parties, this is a real threat to our national democracy.
Oh, absolutely. We've been discussing this. We've discussed this more than once. We discussed it on the show today. It's just extraordinary. I think a lot of us were quite surprised, that, some of these by-elections like Gorton and Denton. What the hell? A load of people voting. And people say, well, they're here. That same argument about EU citizens should be allowed to. But at least when it was EU citizens voting in European elections, if you're British living in EU, you were able to do so as well. There is no return favour from any of these nations. But also, I'm sorry, I don't care whether you've lived here for 100 years. If you're not a British citizen, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. There's nothing to discuss there. Now, I mentioned the colonial stuff. Now, these things come up a lot, don't they? But let's talk about this. This is an extraordinary employment tribunal ruling. And for once, it looks like it's a sensible one. This is a panel led by Kirsty Eyre, an employment judge. And she has ruled, they have ruled, that someone using the word coloured to describe someone at work is not racist, even if it does offend or can offend people from ethnic minority backgrounds. Now, she said that while the word was generally considered to be old-fashioned and can be offensive, its use did not amount to racial harassment when used in a one-off way purely to describe someone from the colour. Now, this is a ruling after Amy Reeves, who's of mixed British and Jamaican heritage, she sued her former employer, the construction company Kier Limited, for harassment, victimisation and race discrimination. She didn't work for them very long. She worked in Sheffield as a commercial administrator. On her first day in the job, she complained about someone describing the company's tenants as a little old black lady. And then there was another conversation about 2 coloured ladies outside. She's said she's very upset about this, very angry, very offended, made complaints, took them to this employment tribunal. But, of course, at some point she said she objected to even people saying people were black. I mean, it's very difficult to keep up with what language is acceptable, isn't it? Because for many people of a certain generation, saying someone was coloured was actually the polite, non-racist term to use, and then it became the old racist term to use. And if you don't keep up with the latest rules, very easy to be accused of racism.
Exactly, and she hates the word black, and yet she said everybody in her office was white. So why, if you can use white, why can't you use black? But I couldn't help but laugh when I saw her photo in the Times, because it shows her wearing a lanyard attending a Green Party conference.
There you go.
So I think it's clear here, classic example of some woke snowflake who's been absolutely educated and immersed in the politics of race and victimhood, entering into the real world and the world of construction. Well, there you go. I don't think it's so much about the colour of her skin, more the fact that she's thin-skinned here, because she was also complaining about microaggressions, etc. And
if you even use that word in a complaint, you know. But the thing is, just because you're working at a construction company doesn't mean you'd have to put up with racist language. But if someone was using, you know, the N-word against or being disparaging about people because of the colour of their skin, should have every right to speak up and you know, complain about the situation. But people were simply being descriptive.
Yes, well, the point is, yes, if you're in a room full of people of one colour, say they're white, of course you're going to say little old black lady. If you're in a room full of black people, they will always point out something. Oh, this white woman came over to me. And I'm sure a group of Indians would say, oh, there was a little old black lady who came over. It's just the way that we act when we are in a group of people, you know.
It's the most visible. So you'd notice lady, age, skin colour. These are visible descriptors.
Yeah, and a group of black people would say, oh, look, there's a little old Chinese lady who came in. I mean, we just need to get over the sensitivity. And of course, linguistically...
It's about the intention, isn't it? You're intending to hurt.
Linguistically, there's no difference between people of colour and coloured people, right? Now, historically, we do regard that as being offensive. There are links to the Deep South. But as you said, this is about the intent of the person. Was there any malice? Was there a desire to cause offence? And of course not. In most of these situations, there isn't. And what I find remarkable, of course, is that the oldest civil rights organization in America is the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured Peoples. Yeah. And they've never considered changing their name.
Exactly. Rafe Hadel-Mancu, thank you, as always, for joining us. Voice of Reason, the New Culture Forum. Quick thought from Philip Ingram on this.
Well, going back to you know, eligibility for Parliament and eligibility to vote, you know, I think we need to start with stopping Commonwealth citizens and citizens of the Irish Republic, even if they're not registered as voters in the United Kingdom, to be able to stand for Parliament. Yeah. We need to get the basics right. We're not allowed to stand for their parliaments. They shouldn't be allowed to stand for ours.
Planet is this allowed to happen? It's an all sort of colonial thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like, well, it needs to stop.
It does.
Utterly bizarre. Anyway, up next, we're going to be talking about something completely different. Sport. We're going to be talking about football. We're going to get a gloomy face from Philip Ingram, and we're going to be talking about the tennis with a British wild card storming into the Wimbledon semi-finals. We'll talk to Jim White from The Telegraph about that up next. This is Talk. The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions, to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 12:51 is the time. Now, Philip Ingram's been with me the whole show, and I have forced him to watch the football a few times, have we not? But you're far more excited about the tennis.
Yeah, well, no, you haven't forced me to watch the football. I've done it because it's the World Cup, and you know, England are there, and I'm mildly amused to see if football will.
You're not doing that Scottish thing of supporting Norway.
No,
not
in the slightest. No, I'm supporting England the whole way through. But I'm, you know, the last game was entertaining. The two games beforehand were reminded me why I didn't like football.
There we are.
Yeah,
but you're loving the tennis.
Oh, tennis, amazing.
Well,
oh, my goodness, Wimbledon is fantastic because you've got something there. It's absolutely amazing. And we've got, our wild card has got through to the quarterfinals. This is the first time this has happened in decades.
It's absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? Well, let's talk about this with Jim White, sports writer at The Telegraph. We talked about a lot of different sports. I know you get to cover everything. You do enjoy yourself, don't you, Jim? Good afternoon to you.
I enjoyed myself yesterday, Julia. I was in Centre Court watching young Arthur.
How good is your job?
I know, sorry. But it was magnificent. I tell you, there's something about Arthur which really,
which, by the way, we haven't even said his name. Arthur Ferry, British wildcard, 23-year-old, storming past the 9th seed, Flavio Cobolli, to reach the Wimbledon semi-finals.
And there's something lovely about him, which is he doesn't appear to be afflicted by the standard thing of Brits getting down deep into a competition or being scared by it. Yeah. He admitted he was nervous, but what he looks like is a guy who seizes the opportunity, who relishes it. He's tremendously athletic. He's not a big guy, so he's not the standard thumping, booming server. He claims to be 5'9", though my colleague Simon Briggs, who's seen him in very close up, said he must have been standing on an encyclopedia when that measurement was delivered.
But this is the thing. Apparently, the reason why he doesn't get scared is he does mad things like base jumping. So
that's right.
So if you're that fearless, then the centre court at Wimbledon's not gonna worry you. Look, he's stonking. I mean, all of his victories. I mean, everything's just an added bonus and surprise. Even at this point, even if he went out in the semi-final, I'm not trying to jinx anything, and he is facing. Who's his opponent? The number 3 seed, whose name escapes me.
Alexander Zverev,
and he's 6'3",
French Open champion.
Exactly. Who's got a lot of swagger from that. A Grand Slam champion. But even if you get this is a complete game changer for his career in terms of moving up the rankings from 180 into the top 60. Gets invited to all the big tournaments. The payday instantly is huge. Nice looking lad. He can talk nicely. The sponsors are going to be there. This is a game changer.
Listen, if the cross-channel ferry companies haven't already signed him up, what are they doing?
Well, look, he's playing semi-final on Friday, isn't he?
He is, yes. He's playing Zverev, which will be a kind of little and large occasion. Zverev is 6'7".
Oh, 6'7". I thought 6'3". Right. Oh, okay.
No, he's huge, and he will thump down the serves. But I think whether he does it, listen, it's a really tough ask from here on in, because even if he beats Zverev, he'll have either Sinner or Djokovic at the other side of in the final. He's done magnificently to get here, but I have a sense of him, having seen him speaking after the event, that I think he is determined to go further. He's not going to be satisfied with just a semi-final. This is a winner, Julia.
And he'll have the crowd roaring for him as well. Well, look, let's talk about also a small match of the World Cup. England playing their quarter-final match against Norway on Saturday night. I've already booked my space in the pub in Malta. We're ready. We've got the big screen. We know where we're going to be. We are, though, going to, if we did make it, there's good things and bad things. If we do beat Norway, fingers crossed, we'd make it to the semi-final and then make it to the final. We will have to face basically a Super Bowl style half-time basically performance. Justin Bieber, Shakira, because she has to play everything, doesn't she? Madonna, and I think was it the K-pops, BTS, good grief, and goodness knows who else are going to be playing. Now, what I can't understand is, we've got a 15-minute, under FIFA rules, we have a 15-minute half-time. It's got to be only 15 minutes. That's the rule. But this sort of performance, as we see during half-time at Super Bowl, takes about 25 minutes. You've got to put the stages up, got to take them down, all of that. FIFA are going to break their own rules, aren't they?
Oh, well, they've done that already in this competition, Julia, so it would be of no surprise at all. It'd be slightly different from having to listen to Roy Keane, Gary Neville and Ian Wright at half-time, isn't it? Their tunes are slightly better. But you're right. Beyond them standing there with a microphone in the centre circle and then being hurried off as the players come back, I can't just can't see how they do it. Maybe they'll put up a little stage in the stands or something. I just don't follow how it can be done, because the halftime at the Super Bowl has become almost as big a production as the event itself.
Absolutely. What do you make of the Prime Minister saying that actually if we did storm to victory in the World Cup, and look, we've got 3 matches to get through, so let's not get ahead of ourselves, that he's seriously considering giving fans a day off work as one of his last acts in power, so we get bank holiday. I mean, let's face it, if we were in the final and we won on that Sunday, no one's going to be at work on the Monday morning anyway. I'll have to be, but who are we kidding? But realistically, having a bank holiday like in a few days' time, what's the point of that? People are just going to not turn up to work.
Exactly. And you can't establish it as a bank holiday because, as you've already mentioned, they're not going to enjoy that in Scotland, are they? But listen, I think slightly typical of this Prime Minister, he's promising something way, way ahead of the curve. Let's see what happens on Saturday. That's the important thing. And what I like about this team, what I like about Harry Kane, Thomas Tuchel, Jude Bellingham is that's what they'll focus on. They're not thinking about a day off after the final.
Yeah, one game at a time. Jim White, sports writer at The Telegraph, thank you very much indeed. Delighted to say Ian Collins is here to tell us what's happening on his show.
We are talking Clacton, we're talking Binface, who's become the hero at the moment.
I'm getting a lot of people being cross with this, saying I'm being really critical of reform. I'm not. I'm just saying I'm just not entirely sure this is working out.
Well, we should be critical of, our default position should be critical of all politicians. That's the starting point, unless they prove otherwise. Yes. And of course, if there are issues that are unfathomable or unprecedented, we look at them.
Absolutely.
Frankly, Binface, I think it's the next JFK. I've heard the man speak. I think this is a
fella...
Well,
he's been unmasked, hasn't he? As a not very funny...
Never unmasked the bin.